Well, it's that time again. RFM, glad to have you along. It is Mormonism Live Wednesday night. Glad that all of you guys are here as well. It is June 24th, 2026. And tonight we are talking about the William Clayton journals. Jeremy Hoop released them. We're going to go into the provenance of those, how he said he got them, whether everything about his story holds up, what he says the journals are, what they're not, and RFM and I doing a little deep dive to see how much accuracy is in those comments. Radio Free Mormon, good evening to you. And what do you want to say before we jump into these?
Guten Abend, mein Freund.
Si, senor.
All I want to say is one of the things that Jeremy Hoop had said, is that he had been through these with a fine-tooth comb because he's had them, exclusive access to them, in fact, for a year and a half while he's writing his book or his paper, whatever the heck it's that conundrum thing, right? The Clayton conundrum or something like that.
The Clayton conundrum.
Okay. So anyway, so he knows what's in there, and what he wanted to announce right off the bat was that there was no hint, no whiff of polygamy in these journals, because he's a polygamy denier, you know that. So what did you think of that when he said that?
I had a hunch that if the church was holding these back, there was certainly going to be some polygamy in them. And I think there's quite a few interesting directions around polygamy that we'll go into tonight. By the way, John Turner, great historian, I think will back up everything that we're saying tonight. So I'm excited to dive into these. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
Well, that's mainly it, is that my understanding is you're going to play some clips from Jeremy Hoopa about his talking about the provenance, how it was he got that. And he's going to have this alleged doctor, McKay somebody, if that is his real name, on the show with him and talk about how he visited the ailing James B. Allen in his 90s in the old folks home and somehow managed to walk. I think he's actually admits that that James B. Allen was a patient of his. Okay, and somehow manages to walk away with James B. Allen's transcript of these journals, the William Clayton journals. Now, the fact that James B. Allen has had these journals for decades now is, I think, established. And at least as of 1995, 3 decades ago, he had them, or he had made one for his exclusive use because he was working with the church history department. I think he was associate. And in the church history office, associate historian.
Yeah, I think he was assistant to James or Leonard Arrington, and he was assistant, like sort of the right-hand man of Leonard Arrington, assistant church historian.
And by the way, I don't mean to throw a roadblock in front of this great opening that we've got going, but I will say the reason we know that is because he got in a fight with George B. Smith of Signature Books publicly in a back and forth that was published in Dialogue. And it was very clear that James B. Allen had access to all of it and was upbraiding George B. Smith for not having all of it when was it George B. Smith?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
I'll just say George Smith. I'm pretty sure that's right. Okay. Was not allowed access to it. So James Allen excoriating George Smith for not using the original documents that George Smith couldn't have access to because the church wouldn't let him, but the church would let James B. Allen see. That's the difference. It was insane.
Those old catch-22s, huh?
Yes, but that's how long this has been around. And so it has circulated in the Mormon underground, and Jeremy Hoop is apparently saying that this is how it came to him.
Yeah, and so we'll jump right into playing our first clip so that we can begin to hear Jeremy explain their provenance and some other little details that I think will be interesting. Here is that first one.
Is how in the world did you get the William Clayton journals? Because you got all of them.
Well, I was aware that that William Clayton's Nauvoo journal, we had what had been leaked from Gerald and Sandra Tanner,
right?
When they stole Andrew Ehat's notes, and I was aware that James Allen had been one of the, I think there were only 2 men, there may have been others, who actually was able to go in there and see the whole journal. And he used that to produce his history of William Clayton. So when he came in as a patient, and I saw him professionally.
So he was your patient.
Yes. Tell us more, Doctor.
So we get this little inkling on the front end that it's through James B. Allen that this comes about, and that this guy is in the medical field and James B. Allen is his patient. So now with that, we'll go here. Let me get to the next one.
So this McKay guy, and I think that's supposed to be his first name, McKay somebody. And I can't remember why it is. I know that I've been reading a lot today and yesterday about this. But this is the guy who says he's his doctor, and he's going to be the guy who gets the journal from James B. Allen.
And he tells a little more here about what happens after.
So, how in the world did you get the journals from him?
Well, I asked for them.
Wait
I said, hey, could I get a copy of the William Clayton Nauvoo journals? And his answer was, yeah, sure.
Just like that.
Yeah, come by my home and I'll give them to you. That's simple.
And I remember getting a call from you almost immediately, some point after that.
So
by the way, I had no idea. I don't think I knew that you were even friends with James Allen until you called me and you said, you won't believe what I just got.
So I went to his assisted living facility. He was in his 90s then, and confined to the facility. And I visited it with him for a while, and then he pulled out his laptop and sent me the PDF of the William Clayton Nauvoo journals.
I visited with him for a while. I wonder what that means.
Yeah, I think we'll have to make some sense of this when we get to the end of these. So I'm trying to
ask you a question, and I hope that you know the answer to this. Maybe it hasn't been discussed, but I understand what they're saying. McKay, the doctor, his connection is with James B. Allen. It's doctor-patient. Do you know what Jeremy Hoop's connection is with McKay, and why it is that as soon as McKay gets a hold of this, he's on the horn to Jeremy?
Yeah, I don't know the exact connection. I can tell from the entire conversation that they've known each other for a while. So I would say that they're friends. They seem to have similar interest, and they're aware that the other person has deep interest in Mormon history, to the point where McKay reached out to Jeremy Hoop to share with him these journals. My hunch, now I'm stepping away from what I know, and what I think is that he is also a polygamy denier, and behind the scenes, he's really interested in all the polygamy denier history. And so these two have had several conversations over a long period of time, years, I think at this point, it would be safe to say.
Okay, so McKay is a polygamy denier as well?
That's my hunch. Based on the way they talk to each other and how friendly they are and how much they take interest in the same parts of Mormon history.
Okay, so let me see if I understand what's going on. We've got these Clayton journals, which for decades now, it's been public knowledge that James B. Allen has his own personal transcript of. Time goes by. James B. Allen becomes the patient of Dr. McKay. And then, now that he's in an assisted living facility, Dr. McKay goes to visit him and visits with him for a while, and then asks him to give him the James B. Allen transcript. If you got, can I see it? And yeah, he sends it to him. I just can't see under those circumstances my way clear to thinking that would have been shared with me by James B. Allen with the idea it was okay to share it with somebody else.
Yeah. And I think there are other data points we'll get into later that touch on that idea as well. I will, again,
unless he explicitly said, you're free to share this with anybody that you want, then I would.
Yeah, I don't the way they have the conversation, I don't know if this sound bites in these clips, but I can definitely vouch for that in the conversation that Hoop is having with McKay, that McKay makes it clear that he doesn't really know if he's allowed to share them or not, but he has an inkling that if he shares them while James B. Allen is alive, there's at least some reservation that that he fears that James will be offended by such.
Perhaps what he's really concerned about is that James will bring a lawsuit for such.
Yeah. And I think another side of this part of the conversation is that I'd really like to know what James B. Allen's health was towards the end of his life. If he's in a nursing home because he has some onset of dementia, we would be in a situation where someone took advantage of him, because they mentioned like McKay goes into his living space and James B. Allen just makes a copy off of his computer so that McKay can have it. So I at least, again, could be completely innocent. But the questions that we want to ask around situations where somebody ends up with something that we can't figure out how they really got it. In this situation, I'd like to know James B. Allen's health.
Yeah, and I want to say and make it clear for the record what I think needs nothing for me to say, but I'm glad, and I know you are, we talked about it before the show, Bill. We're both glad that these journals are now in the public domain. That's a good thing. So we're not trying to say that it's a bad thing that these got released. What I think we're saying is there is a story that's being told by Jeremy, now involving McKay, about how this was obtained in order to establish its provenance. That's one purpose for this, to show it goes back to James B. Allen. And number two, to show that they have clean hands in this and they really didn't do anything wrong. I think that's the twin purposes of this particular video.
Yeah. And again, you've already said it. I don't think there's ever a moment anywhere outside of deeply personal and private information where someone is having their personal life put on display and such is just inappropriate. Outside of that, I don't think any history should ever be hidden and stored away and withheld by any religion on planet Earth. And anytime a religion, especially if it's your religion, anytime a religion hides or withholds history, I just have red flags going up that something's not okay. Something's about that is damaging to the story of that religion. And really, we should all just be truth seekers. It should just be available. And so the church has withheld these for a long time. We've gotten bits and pieces. We know certain parts of the journal or the Clayton journals that are evidence of other things going on in the church, and those have been shared and back that up. I know Vogel and others have done work with these. Again, James B. Allen had access. The EHOT guy had access. I'm glad they're out, and they should be out. I definitely have questions about this provenance story. So with that, I'm going to play this next clip.
I just didn't want to leave off of this list of yours, the Tanners who published the EHAT stuff and then got sued by EHAT and won in the trial court, but lost on appeal.
Yeah. Love to know who were the presiding legal judges of each instance and what the win was sort of based on and what the defeat in the appeal was based on. But
I know those things, but it's kind of off in the weeds at this point. I think an entire history of these Clayton journals. I mean, this is not something that the church has just started hiding, okay, because they discovered it yesterday and said, we got to hide this. No, they've been hiding this stuff a long time. That's what they've been doing. And it has been like leaking out by fits and starts in these different episodes, which are fascinating in their own right and together make quite the story. And now this is part of the story where now apparently what they're saying is the James B. Allen transcript is now available to the public.
Yeah. I want to know before we go to the next slide, Haley's asking, are these journals complete and accurate? The truth is we don't know. The actual journals are held by the church and have never been shared publicly. Only less than a half dozen people, as far as I know, have been allowed to really go through them. And those people have shared some things, but unable to share everything. We do know from Hoop's discussion in his first episode about these that he knows that there are written notes by after Clayton, who make notes in a margin or make a little note about a page or something, and those did not get included in the transcriptions.
Mm-hmm.
So he thinks that the journals are essentially accurate and complete, but he notes that there are some exceptions to that. And until the journals actually are made public, we don't know. The church has turned the journals over. Is it Yale or Harvard?
That's the story I hear is Yale, or I think it's Yale.
Yeah. And we're supposed to publish those this last year, and now we're this year and that hasn't happened yet. And so we're kind of waiting any minute. That's supposed to happen, but there's also a part of me that thinks it'll never happen.
My best guess at this right now is that my understanding is a historian such as James B. Allen would want to make a complete transcript of the journal for his use. So he's not always thumbing back and forth in the journal for references, obviously, right? Because of that, it would be in his interest to make it as accurate as possible. This is back decades ago. I expect it was typed out and may have been PDF'd. I don't know. But so that much makes sense. But the issue for me is not so much that, but now it's gone through the hands of McKay, who may be a polygamy denier, and now through the hands of Hoop, who is also definitely a polygamy denier. And to the extent that these are something that could be easily deleted in a document form on a computer, I mean, what are they going to do if they come to something that is obviously showing Joseph Smith practiced polygamy? I don't know what they're going to do. I know that they're going to feel conflicted. And then the question is, what will they do about it? I mean, if they leave it in, that would be the right thing to do. But if they take it out, they've got to know eventually the church is going to get around to releasing them.
Yeah. So Katie Ash says there must be something pretty bad in them. And I'll just say we're going to share some things that we found in them tonight. With that, I'll play this third clip here.
Good heavens. And then you called me and you sent them to me. And as we talked about it, I thought, here we have this record that people have been salivating over, speculating over, demanding, wondering what's in there for all these years. And all of a sudden now you've got them, I've got them. And, we talked about what to do. And you did ask me, what was it that you requested of me?
I just said, as long as he's alive, I think we ought to not spread them broadly.
Yes.
And that's based, I think, largely on the LDS Church's unwillingness to release them. Yeah. And, they've said they were going to release them, but then years have dragged on and they haven't. And I didn't want anything to hurt my relationship with James. And although I had no reason to think it would, well, that's not quite true. Although he hadn't given me any conditions, I thought it might be seen as some kind of disloyalty.
Yep.
Because I didn't tell him I wanted him and that share him. I just said I wanted to look at him.
Wow. So they fell into your hands. And in this way, unlike the Tanner episode, where apparently in Linda Cook's office, somebody found the copies and photocopied and spread them wide, basically stole the property. And then the Tanners lawfully published them. They won in court. This is very different. This is James Allen willfully and eagerly, it seems like, giving them to you. And James has passed away. And it feels to me and to you, the time has come that the world should just have them.
Oh my gosh. He really gave it away, didn't he? You see, here's the thing that we know. I was doing some research on this and going far afield, I thought, and then it came up with something extremely pertinent to the discussion. And it has to do with the fact that James B. Allen is on record in print as stating multiple times that he believes that the church has to give permission before it is proper and right to publish these journals, these William Clayton journals. So he was still of the same mind. See, the question was, this was in the mid 1990s that he published this. Question was, how long was he of the same mind? Well, apparently up until the time that McKay went and spoke to him. Did you see how he gave it away? Did you see the tell when he said, well, if I had published it while he was alive, he wouldn't have had a problem with it either? Beat. Well, that's not exactly true. And then spinning off to something else. That's what he's talking about, I think.
So the one thing that caught my eye in the very beginning of his explanation is he blamed it on the church. This is actually the church's fault that we didn't come out with them. And that doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know how I can reconcile that, blaming the church for why I didn't release them, and then acknowledge that on some level I have some genuine fear that James B. Allen doesn't want me to release them. So if I just wait till he dies, I get to ignore the fact of asking him if I have permission, and now I get to release them and pretend it's this altruistic thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, as soon as he died, I can't do it while he's alive, but as soon as he dies, I'm going to release him.
McKay needs some lessons in lying, I think, because he's not a very good one. He should not be playing poker, at least not for real money.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing.
And I would love it if you can play that bit again, because it's amazing. Now that we know this, what do you want to say?
Well, I'll play it again, but I think it's really important at this point to note that James B. Allen died September 2nd of 2024. Jeremy had this, over a year and a half before he released them.
A year and 9 months, I think.
If they were waiting for James B. Allen to die and then release him, seems like it could have been September 3rd or thereabouts of 2024. So it just seems strange. I'll just note, it seems strange to me, this story, in light of the facts.
19 months. That must be a big book that Jeremy Hoop wrote.
Yeah, I'll put this one we just played back on so the audience can hear him wanting to tell the audience he's perfectly safe to release them, and then noticing inside of himself that may not exactly be honest, and trying to at least leave some qualifiers so that that he has an out.
Good heavens. And then you called me and you sent them to me. And as we talked about it, I thought, here we have this record that people have been salivating over, speculating over, demanding, wondering what's in there for all these years. And all of a sudden now you've got them, I've got them. And, we talked about what to do. And you did ask me, what was it that you requested of me?
I just said, as long as he's alive, I think we ought to not spread them broadly.
Yes.
And that's based, I think, largely on the LDS Church's unwillingness to release them. Yeah. And, they've said they were going to release them, but then years have dragged on and they haven't. And I didn't want anything to hurt my relationship with James. And although I had no reason to think it would, well, that's not quite true. Although he hadn't given me any conditions, I thought it might be seen as some kind of disloyalty.
Yep.
Because I didn't tell him I wanted.
It would be seen as some kind of disloyalty, because that's what it is.
Wow. So they fell into your hands. And in this way, unlike the Tanner episode, where apparently in Linda Cook's office, somebody found the copies and photocopied this, spread them wide, basically stole the property. And then the Tanners lawfully published them. They won in court. This is very different. This is James Allen willfully and eagerly, it seems like, giving them to you. And James has passed away. And it feels to me and to you, the time has come that the world should just have them.
And notice what they're not saying, that he said it was okay. And in fact, McKay says, well, he gave them to me. Well, I figured I could publish it. It'd be okay in his own lifetime. He wouldn't have a problem with it. Well, that's not really true. So anyway, I didn't publish them. We didn't go out with this till what? I gave it to somebody else to publish, by the way. And it comes out 19 months later, I think.
Yeah. And I'll just say here before I play the next clip, I couldn't help but wonder if you were free to put them out on September 3rd of 2024, why is it basically the beginning of June that you're putting them out in 2026? And then I remembered what he said in the first part.
For a while, and I couldn't talk about it.
He's had them for a while, and he couldn't talk about it. And, you thought, okay, well, maybe James B. Allen just died 2 weeks ago. And as we pointed out, Allen died back in 2024. And you wanted to show this article. Let me put this up on the screen so you can talk about this for a moment. What do you...
By the way, Bill, is the story then... Okay, I want to make sure I understand the story. Is the story that... Can you go back to the slide before this?
Yep.
Let's see here.
Right there.
Thank you. So McKay, we understand, gets the journal or the journal from James B. Allen. My question is, when did McKay contact Hoop? Did he contact him right after he got the journal? I think that's what he said. He didn't wait until he died to contact Hoop.
No. He says Hoop and him say they had them before Allen died.
Yes.
But didn't feel safe to release them until after Allen died. And Hoop acknowledges, you gave me a copy. We both had them. We both sat on them.
So what we're dating it from is not September 2nd, 2024. In other words, the period of time that they've had this in their exclusive control, but whatever the date was prior to the date of death, that McKay went and visited with James B. Allen and walked away with the journals.
Yeah. And so, Jeremy, I assume you're going to watch this. You can see already that there are lots of questions lining up. I would love, because I don't know anyone else who knows James B. Allen personally later in life, but definitely his doctor knew him. And I would love if Dr. McKay would answer what kind of mental condition James B. Allen was. That will allow us to have McKay on the record saying what his impression of Allen's mental state was. I think it's also important that you notify the public of when you got these. What year was it? Roughly what date was it? We'd like to know how long you hung on to those. How long were you able to look at these behind the scenes without telling any of us that you had them? Again, you keeping them private for the reasons that are just and reasonable, I'm all for that. We're going to ask questions about that story. I think there are some reasonable questions that need to be answered. I definitely have some skepticism about it. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a good, innocent story for how all of this went down. But as we talk tonight, Jeremy, I'd love if you jotted some questions down that we're asking and answered those in a future episode. RFM, tell me what you got here.
Thank you very much. This is the article that I looked up in Dialogue. It was volume 30, it says up there, number 2. So 30 would be around 1996 or so, which makes sense with what's written in it. I'm just establishing that this is called Editing William Clayton and the Politics of Mormon History. This is describing what it's a back and forth between George D. Smith, not B, it was George D. Smith, and James B. Allen on the subject. If you look at the highlighted part at the bottom, it says what follows is James B. Allen's original review of George D. Smith's book about the journals and containing the excerpts from the journals that have leaked out. By the way, this is everything that's shocking or amazing about the journals has leaked out long ago. So if you're thinking there's going to be something amazing left in these journals, you're probably going to be mistaken. Okay? Because we've known about it because of all these leaks. But here's what, and that's what it was based upon leaked stuff and other things that George D. Smith could get access to. In other words, he's trying to get access to anything in the William Clayton journals that he can without having access to the journals themselves, because the church won't allow it. But there are materials out there, and I can't remember what they all are, but there are different segments of materials. And he came up with his own version of the journals of William Clayton, while saying, these aren't complete, but this is the best that I can do under the circumstances. Okay, so here's the reply from James B. Allen. All I want to say is that James B. Allen in 1996 states this. Can you read the part that's highlighted there? These are the words and published words of James B. Allen.
My own feeling is that since these journals are owned by the church, it is inappropriate to publish them or any other manuscripts in the church archives without church permission, regardless of the legal technicalities relating to the heirs.
Right. So this is a response by him to something that George D. Smith had said was, well, I didn't have the permission of the church, but I had the permission of the heirs of William Clayton. So that's the part at the end. The main reason I have it highlighted should be obvious, right? James B. Allen is very clear. This is his position. If you don't have the permission of the church, you don't publish it. And he continues to say that further down on the next page. He says, this is James B. Allen's words, I did not want to participate in such a venture without church permission. And that venture was one that had been proposed to him by George D. Smith about working together on the William Clayton journals. I did not want to participate in such a venture without church permission. Later in November, I had a conversation about the Clayton journals with Elder John K. Carmack, Assistant Executive Director of the LDS Historical Department. It was clear from that conversation, however, that it would not be possible to obtain permission at that time, so I dropped the matter. That's twice he says it now, in addition to the time on the slide before. That's 1, 2, 3. He's going to say it again. On 5th December, George Smith came to see me in my office, and we also had lunch together. I told him again that I did not want to be involved, for I thought it was improper to publish the Nauvoo journals without church permission. That's what I mean when I say this is the benchmark in the mid-1990s, where James B. Allen is clear as crystal that if there's no church permission, the journal should not be published, regardless of whether James B. Allen is alive.
When Dr. McKay says, there's no, he never gave me any impression that I couldn't share them. And then he pauses for a moment and then corrects himself and says, well, that's not exactly right. The way he's articulating that response, the post response, seems like he now feels like, oh no, there is this tangential thing that indicates to me that I shouldn't share them. And it seems to me the most likely thing, besides something we don't know about, is that he's aware also of this material.
Well, he's aware of this material, or he's heard it directly from James B. Allen. I mean, what happens while they're visiting for a while?
Yeah.
Right? James B. Allen, this is his position. And he went public with it. And if he still held it, I imagine that some of the discussion and the visiting for a while might have included that.
Yeah. And so then we get to this next segment.
I'm sorry, Bill, I'm not being clear enough. Let me just put it this way, okay?
Sorry.
It's my fault. I might imagine that if James B. Allen holds this position that this should not be published without church permission, but he's going to give it to somebody else, his doctor, that he would adjure them the same way and say, this is not to be published without church permission, unless he was just too far gone to even remember to say it.
Yeah, except that Dr. McKay tells you that there is something in his mind that indicates to him that he knows he isn't exactly supposed to share them.
Exactly. I'm sorry. That is an excellent point. And that's when he goes, well, that's not exactly true. Because my recollection is what he says is that so we published him after he was dead. I thought that'd be okay. Well, it would have been okay before he died. Well, that's not exactly true. Yeah. That's where he gave it all away.
Yep. So we end up here.
Well, this is just the beginning.
Let me just say, why, when he thinks he could have shared them September 3rd, 2024, do they not come out until the beginning of June 2026?
I now know these journals. I know them so well that I've now written a full book on the subject. It's called The Clayton Conundrum. Why the conundrum? Because, well, they've built an entire argument on a book that isn't what it's purported to be.
Jeremy could have released this in 2024. Between when he could have released it till now, he's been working on a book. And strangely, the releasing of the Clayton Conundrum book roughly coincides with when he releases the Clayton journals.
Exact same time. It's amazing, really. It's quite a coincidence.
Ah, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Me wonders why there's the gap of time, and me thinks it's because Mr. Hoop is writing a book.
Well, you know, it's kind of hard for me to take seriously his complaints against the church for hiding the William Clayton journals when he himself saw fit to do the same. He kind of lost the moral high ground on that argument.
Yeah. They should have, again, we can debate the whole, is James B. Allen in his right mind? Did he give permission? We can argue that. If you're going to release them, they should have been released September 3rd, the moment he died. You can't say you waited till he died and I waited till after I got my book finished.
Plus 21 months. We waited till he died plus 21 months. That's what we agreed to between ourselves. Me and McKay, we didn't have to include James B. Allen in this. I mean, he was too far gone.
Yeah.
21 months after he dies, we're going to release him. That's what they thought. You know, this starts to look kind of clunky. If I'm taking this at face value, it starts to look clunky. It looks kind of like the thing that happens when, I don't know, May, June rolls around of 2026 and somebody gets the idea, hey, let's release these things. Maybe it'll coincide with the book, but now we come up with the backstory, right? The backstory on why we didn't release it. But the backstory doesn't really line up with the reality, because for the backstory to be true, you have to go back in time 21 months to the time that James B. Allen passed away.
Yeah, except it's worse than that, because Hoop does his first conversation where he just says, I got these from a guy, not going to say much. I've got this Clayton Conundrum book. It's all exciting. They're getting released now. We had to wait. And then we did a newscast. We talked about this and said, where did you get them? And we posed lots of other questions. And so in his second episode, he's like, people had questions about this. So I've got Dr. McKay here. He's going to tell us how we got them. The original episode, there's no indication that was the plan. The plan was, let's keep this ambiguous. Let's keep all those names away from this. To address questions that have been raised by first episode,
right.
Here at second episode, explaining the provenance, and the provenance doesn't exactly add up completely.
And maybe if I know all the facts, I won't feel this way, but I am somewhat troubled by a doctor because, you know, doctors and lawyers, maybe accountants too, but there are certain fields in which you are supposed to know what a confidence is. And that you are told things or you find out things about your clients that you are not supposed to share, or your patients that you are not supposed to share with anybody else. There are legal privileges that apply to those relationships as well.
Yeah.
And so for him to go, I'm sorry, go ahead. You wanted to say?
I was just going to say, my therapist has to follow HIPAA rules. And the way those rules work is if we bump into each other at a restaurant, she has to pretend she doesn't know me. I, as the patient, have to breach the boundary first and start to say things to her. And only based on what I can say, can the other party, the medical professional under HIPAA rules, can they now match me in the amount of disclosure that I'm giving? In this case, Dr. McKay informs all of us that Leonard Arrington is a patient of his. I don't know if there's rules about when someone passes what HIPAA rules no longer apply, But if everyone's living, that would definitely be a breach of HIPAA.
Would it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Him saying that James B. Allen is his patient would be breaking.
Oh, even that.
Mhm.
Yes, that's right. It's so broad. Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking about the journals themselves.
Yeah. You were going to say something else. I'm sorry if you forgot or.
No, it's just if I put myself in that position, and I am not making it clear and probably intentionally not making it clear and hoping that James B. Allen doesn't say, you can't share these with anybody else, right? But that he won't address it. And you're not going to ask, right? Because you don't want him to say that. So you're going to leave it ambiguous. You know what I'm talking about. Have we all done this? Is it just me? So we're just going to leave it ambiguous so we can walk away from it and consider ourselves justified in violating what we already know are his real feelings and beliefs about this, that permission from the church is needed.
Yeah. Now we're 40 minutes in. We haven't even gotten to the journals yet. So
I feel like I've completely psychoanalyzed Dr. McKay.
yeah, well, they'll have to respond because they won't, if the story is legitimate, they won't want these kinds of questions sitting out there. So I'm excited to hear their follow-up. Here is the next clip.
Now I can say that I can prove to you that the historians who use these to prove that Joseph Smith was a polygamist, most, if not all of them, have no idea what they're talking about. If they had read them, the full journals, and understood them, there is no way that they would make the claims that they make.
And understood in the crazy way that I understand them. That's what Jeremy Hoop really means. If you read them and understood them the crazy ass way I understand them, you wouldn't see polygamy in there at all.
Yeah. So with that, let's jump into the actual Clayton entries pointing to polygamy and just solve this right out on the front side.
Okay.
So I'll just note here, again, in the show notes down below, folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, down in the YouTube description below the video, near the bottom of that description, you'll see that we created hyperlinks to all 3 volumes of these Clayton journals. You are free to take those, read them, plug them into AI, ask questions. You can do whatever you want with them. I will say this, I may not have the clip of the whole thing, but you're welcome to challenge me on any of these. Joseph Smith teaches the order of the priesthood that later becomes D&C section 132. So this is a May 16th, 1843 entry. In order to obtain the highest degree, a man must enter into this order of the priesthood. Okay, that's ambiguous enough that if there is no other evidence, how are we to know what this order of the priesthood is?
And by the way, that is Clayton recording Joseph Smith privately teaching this to Benjamin Johnson.
Yes, and you're going to see a lot of privately teaching, but there's so much of it. By the time we get to the end of this RFM, I find it extremely difficult to take the position that Jeremy Hoop does, or to even understand how he arrives at his position based on all the things that we'll share tonight. The second one is May 17th, 1843. This is the next day. Joseph tells Clayton and Johnson about J.B. Nobles accepting this doctrine, says J.B. Nobles when he was first taught this doctrine. May 23rd, 1843, Clayton records, a plot is being laid to entrap the brethren of the secret priesthood.
The brethren of the secret priesthood. I like it.
What need is there to entrap somebody if something scandalous isn't happening in the secret priesthood?
Maybe that's why it has to be secret.
Yeah. May 26th, 18. By the way, if the church says it's sacred, not secret, that's not what Clayton thought. Clayton thought it was a secret priesthood.
And so what is this otherwise? I mean, here we got William Clayton, who is Joseph Smith's personal scribe at this time. He is just like with Joseph Smith all the time and writing down all this stuff. He's keeping Joseph Smith's journal for him. That's one of his main callings. And what is he talking about? A secret priesthood.
Secret priesthood. I thought we just had the Melchizedek priesthood and the Aaronic priesthood. Why do we have a secret priesthood? Huh.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, well, it gets less hard to say as we go along. May 26th, 1843, Clayton records Hiram received the doctrine of the priesthood. Well, the normal priesthood, Hiram would already have. He would already understand clearly the doctrine of the normal priesthood.
He's the
What is
freaking
this?
patriarch of the church.
Yeah. What is this priesthood secrets that Hiram is just learning for the first time?
I mean, he's got the patriarchal priesthood even. He's got it all. But now he has to receive the doctrine of the priesthood on May 26, 1843.
What kind of priesthood is so secret that the prophet Joseph Smith tells 100 other people before he tells his own brother, who's also in leadership in the church?
Oh, and by the way, just to be really clear on this, it doesn't say that Hiram was first taught it because he didn't accept it when it was first taught. This is Hiram received, and you can almost see the finally in between Hiram and received. Hiram finally received the doctrine of priesthood. Hiram received it on this day.
Yeah. And so here we're just noting, I don't think these are as direct as later slides that we'll show, but we can see there's this pattern of secrecy, backroom conversations in rooms filled with smoke, and secrets are to be kept. Things are not to be talked about publicly. And little by little, by these backroom conversations, the spread of the good news of this new secret priesthood makes its way out. Okay, next one here. These are a few others. July 12th, 1843. This AM, I wrote a revelation consisting of 10 pages on the order of the priesthood, showing the designs in Moses, Abraham, and David, Solomon having many wives and concubines, etc. So we know this one. This one's been around. We've talked about this one before.
Because it has been leaked in other people's transcripts. That's why.
Yep. And it clearly shows that William Clayton is writing down a revelation of Joseph Smith, and it has something to do with Moses, Abraham, David, and Solomon, and their many wives and concubines.
Yes, it's section 132 for crying out loud. By the way, the fact that this is included in the transcript that Jeremy Hoop has presented convinces me that no, they didn't monkey with it at all. Because if they had, they would have taken this out. This is a smoking gun. They've got some crazy kind of gymnastic, gold medal apologetic to try and get away from this. But this is William Clayton saying that this morning, as Joseph Smith's scribe on July 12th, 1843, I wrote a revelation. This is 132, consisting of 10 pages. It is long, like section 132. On the order of the priesthood, showing the designs in Moses, Abraham, David, and Solomon having many wives and concubines, and etc. That's what it's about. And notice it's linked to the order of the priesthood, to having many wives. So there's that connection again with the secret and the doctrine of the priesthood.
Yeah. I'll note to the audience, if you go and read the journals from those hyperlinks, Clayton doesn't keep the dating exactly perfect. So he'll, like journal 1 will start off in 1842 or 43. Then you jump to like journal 2 and it picks up in 43 and 44. And then you go back to journal 1 and you get some 1845. And so that years and dating bounces around a little bit. If you can't find the dates you're looking for, please open up and do a search on one of the other 2 volumes, but they are all there. This one here, July 12th, same entry. Joseph and Hiram presented it and read it to E, which is Emma, who said that she did not believe a word of it and appeared very rebellious. We've talked about this one before.
Yes, and by the way, can I just ask, so if this revelation really isn't about what it obviously is about, and it's really just about one man, one wife, having eternal marriage, right? Why would Emma be so rebellious about it? Why would she not believe a word of it?
Right. Give me a theory where it's innocuous and still Emma is deeply bothered by it.
Yeah.
And then you get again, we went into the land deeds before and how those are evidence of polygamy. And you get immediately after, Joseph told me to deed all the unencumbered lots to Emma and the children. He appears much troubled about Emma. So you have that as well. Again, I'll just note it here. I know they try to explain it away, but folks, if you do the research on the Nauvoo land deeds, Joseph gives a certain amount of land deeds out to women by themselves, and more than 50% of those women are alleged to be plural wives of Joseph Smith, but the polygamy deniers would like you to believe that's just a coincidence. Okay, next one here. Clayton's own polygamy. And I think this gets interesting. 7th of March, 1843, a.m. at the office, afterwards went to President Joseph's and commenced settlement with those who have claims on city lots. I don't know what the ER stands for, but Brigham Young called me. Oh, elder. Yeah, there we go. Brigham Young called me on one side and said he wants to give me some instructions on the priesthood the first opportunity. He said the prophet had told him to do so and to give me a favor which I have long desired. For this, again, I feel grateful to God and his servant, and the desire of my heart is to do right and be saved. There's a pattern where Joseph doesn't always want to engage these conversations himself. So he always sends a middleman so that if things go awry, he can throw the middleman under the bus.
Yes.
And here you get that happening.
And so he can have deniable plausibility, right, Bill?
Plausible deniability. Yes, sir. And
I'm bringing it back.
I love it. And you're going to see later on, I think, what is the main insight into this presentation tonight, this slide, and quite a few other, but when we get there, you'll know it. When we talk about a specific section of the slideshow, this slide should ring a bell. This pattern of Joseph having a middleman convey the stuff. RFM, would you mind? This is John Turner's book, The Rise and Fall of an American Prophet, Joseph Smith. Would you mind reading page 1? I'll read page 2. You read page 3, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I think the importance of this is that John G. Turner just wrote and produced this award-winning biography of Joseph Smith. It was the first biography really since 2005 in Bushman's Rough Stone Rolling, I think. And as part of it, he had access to the journals, did he not, of William Clayton?
It seems quite obvious he had access one way or another to the journals of William Clayton.
Yes, and this is what he's basing most of this off of. So this is what an award-winning historian, John G. Turner, makes of these journals, which is, it seems to have a lot of polygamy all over it. Now, remember, are we to think that William Clayton is practicing polygamy on the side with all these heartaches and problems and all the involvement of Joseph Smith that he describes, and Joseph Smith didn't know about it? Because I think that's what Jeremy Hoop would have to believe.
It's either that, right? Or the other argument I've heard the polygamy deniers say is that all of any of this material in the Clayton journals and elsewhere that appears to be contemporary is them after the fact altering journals, altering documents in order to keep this mass conspiracy evidenced falsely in 100 different places, including like the Melissa Lott Bible or the doppelganger with Martha Brotherton. Or yeah. So anyway.
And I can tell you exactly every single spot where they monkeyed with the history is where it talks about polygamy.
Every one of those instances is where they altered the documents.
See, it's so easy. This history stuff, anybody can do it. The prophet took other men into his confidence, among them William Clayton, a talented writer and violinist. Clayton and his wife, Ruth, remember that name because that's his first wife. He's going to have more. Were recent immigrants from Lancashire, England. In February 1843, Ruth bore the couple's fourth child. Soon after, Clayton started working in Joseph's office as his scribe. His new boss, that's Joseph, sent Brigham Young to give him some instructions on the priesthood. That's what we just read. Now a euphemism for polygamy. By the way, notice what William Turner says, that is now a euphemism for polygamy. What do you make of that, Bill?
When you talk in secret, it's because you have secret things that you don't want others to know about. And so the fact that there is sort of a code language, and we'll see that numerous times tonight, because there is a code language, you ought to start with the assumption that there's a reason for code language.
Right. Very good. Like all the code names they had in the Doctrine and Covenants, even up until the time that I joined the church, even though they were in brackets. What I make from it is this, okay, is that an award-winning historian, this is an opinion part of the sentence where he says, now a euphemism for polygamy. For him to state it that straightforwardly means that he is very convinced that that's the case. That's what it means to me.
And it had to have shown up time after time after time, that it wasn't just a one-off once or twice.
Yes. In other words, an expert historian, an expert on Joseph Smith, is saying that some instructions on the priesthood was a euphemism for polygamy. Unlike men like Young and Willard Richards, Clayton didn't need much convincing. He's ready to hop right in the sack. Also, unlike the apostles, who made only scattered and cryptic entries about polygamy in their private journals, Clayton recorded abundant detail. Thank you, Clayton.
That's contrary to what Jeremy Hoop says. John Turner, professional historian, well known within Mormon circles for being objective, unbiased, calls balls and strikes accurately. He says it's abundant in Clayton's journals, while Hoop says you're not going to find anything. Don't worry.
Yes, Clayton recorded abundant detail as Joseph pursued additional wives and as those pursuits strained his other relationships. During the last year of Joseph's life, Clayton later recalled, we were scarcely ever together alone, but he was talking on the subject. Just couldn't get him to shut up about this whole, spiritual wifery thing. Clayton told Brigham Young about a woman, Sarah Crooks, whom he had met prior to his immigration. So Clayton had met Sarah Crooks before he immigrated.
Remember, Joseph told Brigham to tell Clayton, there's this favor you've been wanting for a long time.
Oh, right.
And Brigham, tell Clayton, we can make that favor happen.
By the way, spoiler alert, it's going to be a woman. He's had his eye on this woman who happens to be the sister of his current wife, but obviously he's had his eye on her for a while. Otherwise, why would Brigham say, we're going to give you the desire of your heart? And he was so happy. Oh my gosh, I think I'm going to get it. Clayton told Brigham Young about a woman, Sarah Crooks, whom he had met prior to his immigration. They had become friends during his missionary work in Manchester, and Clayton confessed to his diary that he struggled with impure affections for her. Whoa. William. Joseph soon took his scribe for a walk, told him it was lawful to send for Sarah, and even offered to foot the bill.
That's so nice of Joseph.
Wow. Clayton did not wait for Sarah's arrival, to marry plurally. He was really excited about this doctrine, wasn't he?
Yeah, who doesn't want a lot of wives and concubines?
You cannot keep a good man down. He turned his attention to Margaret Moon, his wife Ruth's younger sister. I told you. Sister-in-law, why do you look so much cuter today? He turned his attention to Margaret Moon, his wife Ruth's younger sister. Margaret, along with her mother, already lived in the Clayton household. Sounds cozy. She was engaged to marry another man. Oh, so the younger sister, Margaret, is engaged to marry another man, Aaron Farr.
If we were to put an initial in for Aaron, it would be an A, correct? If Clayton, who's always just using letters to signify people,
yes,
A might be how we would signal Aaron.
Yes. I would use AF, but that would just be me. Okay, she was engaged to marry another man, Aaron Farr. This will be important. Then away from Nauvoo on a mission. I would never, ever, if I had any, any romantic interest in any woman in Nauvoo, I would never go on a mission. They say, screw that. You go on a mission, Joseph. Yeah, Aaron Farr. Clayton conversed with Margaret, that's the younger sister, on the priesthood, quote unquote. So Clayton conversed with Margaret on the priesthood. The overture prompted a visit from 3 of Aaron Farr's siblings. So the guy's on the mission and engaged. She's engaged to the guy. Siblings undoubtedly surprised and displeased at this turn of events. Undeterred, Clayton soon reported back to Joseph that Margaret will submit to counsel with all her heart. So in other words, if you tell her to do it, she'll do it. That's how I took it anyway. How do you take that?
Yeah, that she wants to be with Aaron Farr, that Clayton goes to her and tells her about the new secret priesthood rules. And he's got the insider track to be able to have this access to these new privileges. And while she is resistant, she is willing to bow down to the priesthood and do what is asked of her. So it continues here. Joseph, and I'll go to the next slide. Joseph then sealed Margaret to Clayton. That's a plural relationship. Margaret is the sister of William Clayton's legal wife.
Yes.
Joseph then sealed Margaret to Clayton. Again, that sentence alone proves Joseph Smith is involved in the perpetuator of Joseph Smith's polygamy. Unlike Joseph, Clayton did not keep his plural marriage a secret from his first wife. In fact, on at least some occasions, he shared a bed with both sisters. We will see that journal entry later. The prophet scribe soon had an opportunity to return the favor. Remember this lady, 17-year-old child, Lucy Walker, had moved into the Smith household. She was one of a dozen girls who moved into the Smith household and who also, you can fill in the blank. Lucy Walker had moved into the Smith household shortly after her mother's death. Her father had left Nauvoo on a mission to a warmer climate that might aid his health, at the beck and call of Joseph Smith Jr., by the way. Lucy helped care for Joseph and Emma's children. One day, Joseph took Lucy aside and told her, 17-year-old child Lucy Walker, that God had commanded him to marry her. Sensing resistance, he asked Lucy whether she believed in him to be a prophet of God. When she answered in the affirmative, Joseph explained, this is what religious coercion looks like, by the way. When she answered in the affirmative, Joseph explained to her that the principle of plural or celestial marriage would prove an everlasting benefit to her father's house.
To her father's house.
Lucy was so stunned that she had little to say in response. Joseph told her to pray about it. She did. But instead of receiving the divine witness that he promised, I'm on the right-hand side now, she was in agony, wishing that she could join her mother in the grave. Joseph did not give up. He delivered an ultimatum to Lucy. She had one more day, 24 hours is what he said, to submit to God's command. If you reject this message, Smith told her, by the way, this is in Lucy Walker's own writings, where she shared her experience in a pamphlet or a book that was made public. She was a believing Latter-day Saint, and this is her experience. She had one more day to submit to God's command. If you reject this message, Joseph declared, quote, the gate will be closed forever against you, unquote. Lucy forbade Joseph from speaking to her on the subject again. He confidently told her that God would reveal the truth to her after a sleepless night. By the way, the previous night was also sleepless, because she had that night to think about it. She came back and said no. Then Joseph gave her 24 more hours or the gate would be closed against her forever. After the second sleepless night, she felt her soul fill with calm, peace, and happiness. By the way, what choice did she really have? Her mom is dead. Her dad's on a mission, and she's in the home of the grown man who happens to be the leader of her religion, telling her that she needs to do this. I would have had a revelation too. Joseph was thrilled when Lucy shared the news of her acceptance with him. He led me to a chair, Lucy recounted, placed his hands upon my head, and blessed me with every blessing my heart could possibly desire.
God was very happy that she agreed.
Joseph's pressure prompted a spiritual experience that convinced her to do something that she at first had found repugnant. I want to just acknowledge John Turner stating the fact as directly as you can. On the morning of May, you can't argue it from either side.
Yes, he did a great job. It's interesting you noted that too. It's a beautifully constructed sentence that you can't argue with because it's indisputable, I think. But just stating it that neutrally and that inarguably gives it that additional punch. It says Joseph's pressure prompted a spiritual experience that convinced her to do something she at first had found repugnant.
Yep. On the morning of May 1st, 1843, William Clayton sealed Lucy Walker to Joseph at the Smith residence. Emma was away, accompanied by Lauren Walker, Lucy's older brother. Emma had traveled to St. Louis to purchase items for the guest quarters of a new residence, then under construction for the Smith family. By the way, are any of you believers out there bothered that Joseph waits for Emma to be out of town with the brother of the girl he's about to manipulate into an intimate relationship? And he does it while Emma is gone.
Well, of course. When would you do it?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
I want to know what Lauren Walker and Emma were up to in St. Louis.
Emma, did not know anything about it at all, Lucy stated. The prophet's wife arrived home the next afternoon, not long after Joseph had enjoyed a ride with another child who became a plural wife of Joseph Smith, young, beautiful, watch-holding Flora Woodworth.
Yes, and when it says Joseph had enjoyed a ride with Flora Woodworth, I think that means in a carriage. So just keep your mind out of the gutter, will you? This is a family show.
I also find it interesting, like right after this 2-day period of manipulating this girl in his home into being his plural wife, the next day he's off with another child.
Yeah.
Working his way into under the covers with that one. Joseph Smith. All right, let me put this back up on the side and just note, most men and women who accepted Joseph's doctrine found it difficult in practice. William Clayton, for instance, eagerly pursued plural wives. Most men and women who accepted Joseph's doctrine found it difficult in practice. So,
yes.
So John Turner is just noting that lots of people that were approached with polygamy, when we have things on the record, they're indicating discomfort with acceptance of it. And then he's noting that some felt really eager. William Clayton, for instance, eagerly pursued plural wives. The prophet had sealed his scribe to Margaret Moon, the sister of his first wife, Ruth Moon. Clayton hoped that Sarah Crooks would become his second plural wife. Clayton immediately taught her the doctrine after she arrived in Nauvoo from England, but after an initially positive response, she rejected his proposal.
Oh.
Yeah.
William Clayton, he was quite the eager beaver, wasn't he, Bill?
Yeah. Yeah. Will you take this one?
Sure. Even worse for Clayton, Margaret Moon regretted having married. You know, I've got that thing up there that says live, and it shows me the number of people who are watching, 373. By the way, thank you, everybody, for watching. Please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. It's great seeing you here. Even worse for Clayton, Margaret Moon regretted having married him. Thank you, Bill. Especially once Aaron Farr, oh my gosh, Aaron Farr, remember him, the guy that Margaret was engaged to, who was away on a mission when Clayton moved in on his chick? Aaron Farr, to whom she had been engaged, returned to Nauvoo. Farr found the shock severe, and Margaret was miserable. Oh my gosh. Clayton went to Joseph and asked the prophet if the covenant could be revoked. And we just revoked this covenant because this Margaret, who I just loved so much and I wanted so much, and I got her to marry me plurally, my second wife, and now she's all miserable because the guy she was engaged to is back in town and she still loves him and she doesn't love me. Can we just call this whole thing off, Joseph? And Joseph says, no, sorry. Can't be undone. If the covenant could be revoked, the answer was no. Joseph assured his scribe that if Aaron Farr, but I'm not going to annul the marriage, basically, is what is being asked for. That can't be undone.
No take backs.
Yeah. No take backs. But if Aaron Farr, the guy that your second wife is pining for, if he should make any trouble for you, Joseph would defend him to the uttermost. See, that's not what he wants. He just wants to, gosh, this is miserable. I love her. She doesn't love me. She wants to be with this other guy, but here we're married. And it's not even this real marriage. I mean, under the law, it's a second marriage. Just let her go. Let her go be with this guy. Oh my gosh.
You could
at some point, I'm sorry.
You could have stopped at it's not a real marriage.
Okay. And at some point, William Clayton actually goes to this Farr fellow, Aaron Farr, and asks him, would you take her as your wife now? I mean, no, she's been my wife for a while, but would you take her? And he goes, absolutely, I would. And then, okay, Joseph, all we need is the thumbs up from God, and Joseph is doing this. Oh, but if Aaron Farr makes any trouble, Joseph will have William Clayton's back. Aaron Farr and his family did make some trouble. According to Clayton, they conspired with William Walker, the brother of Lucy Walker, another of Joseph's plural wives. So, according to Clayton, Aaron Farr and his family conspired with William Walker and Emma to bring about Clayton's downfall. As the summer proceeded, moreover, Clayton's mother-in-law soured on his marriage to Margaret. Oh my gosh, she's living in the same house. She's in the same house with Clayton, who's married to both of her daughters, or at least two of her daughters. This is like Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. Clayton's mother-in-law soured on the marriage to Margaret. She no longer wanted the sisters to share a bed with Clayton and was driven to insanity over her daughter's polygamy. She threatened to commit suicide. Yeah, there's nothing about polygamy in this, is there? Oh, you're right. She threatened to commit suicide, and on one occasion, the family found her in the garden on her knees. Apparently, she wasn't weeding. She was deranged and delirious. Margaret, meanwhile, told Clayton that she wanted to tell everyone in Nauvoo all she knew and then kill herself. Everyone involved in Clayton's polygamy endured tremendous anguish.
That's contrary to the way the church likes to tell how everyone just happily accepted the principle.
Yeah, but even though Joseph Smith was obviously intimately involved with this, both in the inception as well as the arrangements, and also the refusal to allow Margaret to be released from this second marriage so she could marry Aaron Farr. In spite of all this being in these journals, Jeremy Hoop apparently is convinced that, no, it doesn't talk about polygamy and Joseph Smith in Nauvoo.
Right. Yeah. Will you read this other paragraph on the right?
Yes, sir. With an utter disregard for the sorrow their prior actions had caused within the family, Clayton and Joseph both wanted to marry Lydia Moon. Okay, this is where I started having some kind of visceral reaction to this whole story. This is really too much, isn't it? So here's Clayton. He's married to Ruth. He wants her little sister. He gets her little sister. He's married to both of them. They're miserable. The mom is in the same house and she wants to kill herself, and she's out, doing things in the garden. But in spite of that, William Clayton, his solution now is, if he can't get rid of Margaret, he wants to have the next sister in line. He wants to have all three sisters. It's hard for me to understand, but Anyway, that's why I think that the author says, with an utter disregard for the sorrow their prior actions had caused within the family, Clayton and Joseph, by the way, and Joseph both wanted to marry Lydia Moon, who was the sister of Margaret and Ruth. Getting wind of Clayton's intentions, Joseph told him, by the way, I don't even have to finish this. I know who's going to win between Joseph and Clayton if they're vying for the same girl. Joseph is going to win, isn't he? Yeah, he's going to win. He always wins. Getting wind of Clayton's intentions, Joseph told him that the Lord had revealed to him that a man could only take two of a family, except by express revelation. And that express revelation is never going to include you, pal. It's only going to include me. But the main rule, you're out in the cold. You can't marry more than two sisters.
Joseph gives himself a loophole for some future moment where he wants three sisters. He goes, It's always only two from a family, one from a bushel, two from a family. But he notes that there are exceptions to the rule if a revelation's received. Now, who here gets those? Oh, that's right. It's me.
A study might be done. It would be a brief study on the similarity of this language from Joseph Smith to that in Jacob chapter 2 that talks about polygamy and that monogamy is the rule unless the Lord says otherwise.
Yeah.
Because that seems quite similar.
Unless the Lord says otherwise.
Yeah. So this is the quote from the journals. The Lord had revealed to him that a man could only take two of a family, except by express revelation. If a man married more than two sisters, it was bound to lead to wrangles and trouble. Yeah.
Because two sisters in your bed, you can work with that. But three sisters in your bed? Ooh, that's going to get contentious.
That's going to be wrangles. That's what they used to call Twister back then, I think. It's going to be wrangles. If a man married more than two sisters, it was bound to lead to wrangles and trouble. That was no doubt true, especially in light of the wrangles caused by Clayton's first plural marriage. In other words, he's already married to two sisters, and it's terrible. Joseph then asked Clayton if he would give Lydia to him. Oh, my gosh. And who is Clayton that he could give Lydia? Well, I guess he's her brother-in-law. Twice over. But Joseph really has to stick it to him, doesn't he? He really has to do the big dog routine. He not only is he going to beat out Clayton for Lydia Moon, he's going to make Clayton give Lydia to Joseph to be Joseph's wife. What a dick.
Yes.
Okay. When Clayton assented, so he says, here, what else is he going to do? He knows who the alpha male is there. When Clayton assented, the prophet sent his scribe, that's William, to Lydia as his intermediary. He actually has to go and propose on behalf of Joseph.
He's the middleman in this interaction where Brigham Young was the middleman for him.
These guys are both scoundrels, but really, really, oh my gosh, that reveals so much about Joseph Smith's character, I think. Okay, not Brigham, no. William Clayton, you go and propose on my behalf.
By the way, if someone agreed to do that for you, you knew you had them. You knew you had them church broke. If you could get William Clayton to ascend on this, you knew you had him for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm. And that's what Clayton did. So the prophet sends him as his intermediary, but Lydia turned Joseph down through Clayton, apparently. Quick on her feet, she told Clayton that she had promised her mother not to marry during the mother's lifetime. Joseph rarely gave up after an initial no, and he did visit Lydia a few days later to press his case. So he went personally. Her no meant no. After Joseph's death, though, before her mother's, Lydia Moon married one of Clayton's brothers. And later, when widowed, married a second Clayton brother. Wow. This is a heck of a family tree to diagram.
Yeah, it goes straight up.
Okay, but she never married Joseph, apparently.
No. So I'll just say here, I'm going to put us back over on the side.
Or William Clayton, just his brothers.
Footnote number 13 through footnote number 32 is what was in the sections we just read.
Mhm.
There are other sources that help make up this story, but every time it says WCJ on the left-hand side, that is a William Clayton journal reference, and we'll show you tonight in these following slides where these parts come from. So I'll just note here, John Turner's telling that Joseph is teaching a new marriage theology. We already read those ones. Joseph controls who is sealed to whom. We get May 16th, 1843, May 17th, 1843 in Clayton's journal. Clayton is being initiated into the system. So again, we read all of those in the very beginning. We get this one, this next one here, which is 16 May, 1843. Except a man and his wife enter into the everlasting covenant. We read that. I feel desirous to be united in an everlasting covenant to my wife and pray that it may soon be. Order to obtain the highest, a man must enter into this order of the priesthood, and if he don't, he can't obtain it. We've read all of that. That's all standard stuff in the church that most of us come across. We get to dined at Brother Babbitt's. This is 17 May.
By the way, Bill,
Yes.
I'm sorry, if you could go back to that slide, there's I think a helpful cross-reference between that last paragraph you read and section 132. Is it 132 or is it 131? Anyway, in the Doctrine and Covenants, where it talks about the highest order, highest level, and you have to enter into the order of the priesthood to get it, it's talking about plural marriage.
In other words, if section 132 is a made-up revelation, why, beyond just the Nauvoo expositor, do we have numerous places where there is overlap between this falsified revelation and the writings contemporary to Joseph Smith about what was special about this secret priesthood and how it was enacted?
Yes.
Great.
So I'm just going to check this out. And excuse me. Go ahead, please.
All right. So dined at Brother Babbitt's, President Jay said to Brother Johnson and I that J.B. Nobles, when he was first taught this doctrine, set his heart on one and pressed Joseph to seal the contract, but he never could get the opportunity. It seemed that the Lord was unwilling. Of course, it's always Joseph who's the intermediary for God's voice. So you could also argue on some level from a secular perspective that it was Joseph Smith who was unwilling to let Brother Noble participate in polygamy. Finally, another came along and he then engaged that one and is a happy man. I learned from this anecdote never to press the prophet, but to wait with patience, and God will bring all things right.
Bill, I found it. It is section 131. It's verses 1 and 2. Let me read this to you because it's going to sound really familiar. We've heard it 100 times in church. In the celestial glory, there are 3 heavens or degrees. And in order to obtain the highest, a man must enter into this order of the priesthood. And if he does not, he cannot obtain it. And in the Doctrine and Covenants, right after it says, enter into this order of the priesthood, it says in brackets, meaning the new and everlasting covenant of marriage. So I think that, is it possible to obtain the highest, a man must enter into this order of the priesthood, and if he don't, he can't obtain it. He may enter into another, but that is the end of his kingdom. He cannot have it. That sounds like the same language, but it doesn't say specifically that that's plural marriage in the Clayton Journal, does it?
It definitely is so similar. They come from the same theology, the same ideology, which strangely matches 132, as the polygamy deniers would say it's a falsified revelation. Yeah. Okay, we get to the 17 May 1843. We read that one. Now we get to the next slide here. Margaret Moon enters the story. It talks about Aaron Farr, Margaret Moon, Ruth Clayton being William's first wife, Margaret then being his second. These are the entries in the William Clayton journals that this comes from, that John Turner utilized to put this story together. May 15th, 1843, my wife and Margaret slept together. June 11th, 1843. Those 2 women were sisters.
Well, it doesn't say he's with them at that. I mean, does it in this?
It doesn't, but there's another moment where the mother-in-law is pissed that they're all in the same bed. So
That's where she's losing it.
They are together.
Yeah.
June 11th, Margaret receives a letter from Aaron Farr. Clayton records unaccountable sorrow. Dang it, that darn Aaron keeps making my girl have feelings for another man. June 13th, 1843, Margaret promises she will not marry Aaron if possible, and that she will seek Clayton's counsel. Don't believe me? Go find the entries. They absolutely say this. Clayton visits with Sister Booth, with Ruth and Margaret. Remember, Sister Booth was what he wanted for his third wife, his second plural wife, and he goes to visit her with his first wife, Ruth, and his second wife, Ruth's sister, Margaret. Interesting.
I wonder if that's what scotched the deal, because it said that she was agreeable at first, but then went cold.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got the part of Turner's story where Clayton is now so bothered by how Margaret is feeling emotional distress that he goes back to Smith and asks if the covenant can be revoked. And Smith says, nope. Once you've agreed and done this, there's no going back. That comes from July 22nd through the 30th. And we'll see these later, where Margaret regrets the arrangement that Clayton records. Clayton records that they go to, that Margaret is just feeling lots of horrible things. And then on July 26th, Clayton asks Joseph whether the covenant can be revoked. And Smith says no.
Okay, can I say something at this point? Because this is so obvious, but I've been pursuing polygamy so much that I didn't see it until now. Regardless of whether Joseph Smith is just exercising power and control over William Clayton and showing him who is top dog in this, okay? Because from my perspective, there is no real priesthood, there is no power, there's no revelation from God that Joseph Smith received. This is all stuff that he's doing and that William Clayton is believing. Okay, but looking at it now from a believing point of view, this is Joseph Smith, who in this very particular position, where to be able to annul a temple marriage by the power of the priesthood would be really helpful to everybody concerned. It's a win-win. Nobody would lose in this. William Clayton would be happy, and Margaret Moon would be happy, and Aaron Farr would be happy. But he says, even when everybody would be happy, this is the law of the Lord. No. Why is it that the church today annuls temple marriages right and left when Joseph Smith said they can't be annulled?
Yeah, this is a contradiction in Mormon theology. Smith says this kind of covenant cannot be revoked, and yet leaders today are happy to revoke them. More happy for men to revoke them than when women request them to be revoked, but they do revoke them nonetheless. So we get that. So that's in it. Now I'm going to show you these entries. 15 May, 1843. This is the exact entry in Clayton's journal. At temple office, night my wife and Margaret slept together. 22nd July, 1843. Let me find the part where it is. I meant to underline.
Why do you think he put that in his journal, Bill?
When you have a great experience, RFM, you often want to store the memory somewhere.
I guess they don't have cameras or anything back then.
No. Don't you write? If you had your first menage a trois, might you, if you had a journal, might you record it in your journal?
You know, I think I would, because I mean, I would if I'd ever had one. So you're right, I would.
Oh,
I would want to write that down and make sure that anybody could pick that up later on and find out.
Two sisters nonetheless, huh?
The Moon Sisters. Full moon and empty arms.
Oh boy, oh boy. Let's see here. So about a third of the way down, my heart aches with grief on his. Let's see here. Who's the his? I don't know what that is. My heart aches on his and M's account, and could almost say, oh, that I had never known H. I don't remember who the H stands for. I did look up some of the other letters as we go along. But thou, O God, knowest the integrity of thy servant. Thou knowest that I have done that which I have understood to be thy will, and am determined to do so. And I ask thee in the name of Jesus Christ, either to absolutely wean my affections from Margaret, my wife's sister, who I just married, and just a couple months ago.
And then her boyfriend came back from his mission and everything went to hell.
Absolutely wean my affections from Margaret, or give me hers entire, and then I am content. So because of her distress, he's not happy, she's not happy. If he could just rewind time and not do this, he could be happy. Or if God could change Margaret's heart, he could be happy.
God has heard this prayer a million times, and never once has he answered it.
Yeah. But to live in this state of feeling, I cannot. If I have done wrong in anything, show it me, that thy servant may repent of it and obtain forgiveness. But, O Lord, have mercy on me, and by some means release me from this grievous bondage of feeling, and thy servant will praise thee. President Joseph came to see me and pronounced a sealing blessing upon Ruth and me. And we mutually entered into an everlasting covenant with each other. So Ruth, his first wife, isn't sealed to him until after Margaret, his second wife, is sealed to him. That should remind people the fact that Emma fell into sort of the same category of not being anywhere near the beginning of women sealed to Joseph Smith. 23rd July, 1843. Still sick at home, Margaret appears dissatisfied with her situation and is miserable. Oh, Lord.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Yes.
Bill, I'm sorry. I was sleeping at the switch. Can I just go back here for a second? Because this is one of the main things here. President Joseph came to see me and pronounced a sealing blessing upon Ruth and me. Okay. So it's Ruth. All right. Not his second wife. I'm trying to think how it is that Jeremy Hoop can look at this and say that there's no polygamy in it.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out how he reconciles these.
This one's easy because it's his first wife, though.
Yep. Yeah, but again,
along with Margaret.
Yes. So still sick at home, Margaret appears dissatisfied with her situation and is miserable. Oh, that the Lord will bless my house and deliver us from every evil principle and feeling, that we may be saved. For I desire to do right. Oh, Lord, make my heart and my affections right and pure, as it shall please thee, that I may enjoy the blessings of peace and happiness. Even so, amen. Hiram preached in the AM in the morning and Joseph in the evening. I had some more talk with Margaret and find she is miserable, which makes me doubly so. Excuse me, sorry. I offered to her to try to have her covenant released if she desired, but she said she was not willing.
Right. This is a situation where she's going to keep saying she's not willing, but obviously she's miserable. So he's going to go to Joseph anyway and get the big thumbs down.
Yeah. 24th of July, the very next day, Margaret is still miserable and unhappy. And it does seem that my heart must burst. What shall I do? How shall I recompense? How long must I thus suffer worse than death for that which I have always regarded as being the will of the Lord?
Okay, so this is clearly Margaret. I mean, it is an M. It's not Ruth, right?
No, this is Margaret.
Yeah, so this is not his wife. This is not his first wife. This is his second plural wife. What I'm trying to wonder is, Jeremy, so what is it that Margaret, what's going on with Margaret? If it's not because they're married, plurally, by Joseph Smith, and she's having this horrible experience, and William Clayton wants to be released from it, so he'll go to Joseph and see if the covenant can be annulled or broken, however he says it. What the hell is it talking about if it's not plural marriage?
Yeah, what is it talking about? Let's see here. She appears almost to hate me and cannot bear to come near me. O God, if thou wilt give me Margaret's affections and cause things to be pleasant and happy between us, if thou wilt bless her and comfort her by thy Spirit, and cause her to rejoice in what she has done, and bring it to pass that I may secure her truly with all her affections for time and for eternity.
Affections.
For time and eternity. This sounds like a marriage relationship. I feel totally to covenant, to try to serve thee with more diligence if possible, and to do all that thou require at mine hands. Will thou not grant me this blessing and relieve my aching heart from this worst of all troubles which ever befell me in the course of my life? O God, plead my cause and give me thine everlasting blessing, and do remember Margaret, for good that she may be comforted even so. Amen, amen, and amen.
Mm-hmm. 3 amens usually does the trick.
You want to read this one?
1 amen, you're kind of taking a chance there.
It is.
But 3 amens, you're going to get what you want. Except he doesn't get what he wants. He's in a miserable situation because he is following Joseph Smith's practice of polygamy. That's why he's in a miserable situation. And he can't understand why. Why I'm in this miserable situation. God, please help me out here. I've done everything you told me to do, which means I've done everything Joseph Smith told me you said I was supposed to do. And I just this is the worst time I've ever had in my entire life, he says. Can you please change this? Make her either start loving me or me not love her anymore. Okay. So next one is, wait a second. What was that? That was 1843. It was July 26th. So this is the next day?
Mm-hmm. You're reading this one here, RFM.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's the 26th. That's Wednesday. So William Clayton says, afterwards at the temple, Margaret, that's an M. Margaret seems quite embittered against me, in consequence of which I called her to me and asked her if she desired the covenant to be revoked if it was possible. To this, she would not give me a satisfactory answer, only saying if it had not been done, it should not be. Meaning our union, for crying out loud. Okay, this is in William Clayton's journals. This is in the James B. Allen transcript. Is that correct, Bill?
Yes, correct.
This is the stuff that Jeremy Hoop was saying. There's nothing in here about polygamy if you understand it correctly. Well, William Clayton's talking about his union with somebody other than his wife, with the sister of his wife, Margaret M. All right, meaning our union. I then asked if she would consent if A would take her. Now that's Aaron, and that's what you were prefiguring, right? You were preparing us for that A being Aaron Farr.
Yeah.
I then asked if she would consent if Aaron Farr would take her under all circumstances. But she would not consent to have it revoked, saying she did it not for her sake, but for the sake of the peace of my family. Under these circumstances, I could not rest until I had ascertained whether the C, which I believe is covenant in this sentence, whether the covenant could be revoked. And although contrary to her wish, I went to see President J, that's Joseph Smith. I took Aaron to talk with him and asked him some questions, whereby I ascertained that he would be willing to take her under all circumstances, that she's already been married to someone. I reasoned considerable with him to prove that I had done right in all these matters so far as I knew it. Well, he didn't have to do a lot of reasoning with him if Aaron was understanding it at first. I called the president out and briefly stated the situation of things and then asked him if the covenant, C, could be revoked. He shook his head and answered no. At the conclusion, my mind seemed for the moment to get relief for the twofold reason that I had done all I could and I did not want the covenant revoked. He still wanted Margaret. He just wanted Margaret to love her. Oh my gosh. I came back and M&A, Margaret and Aaron were together. Oh no, they like each other. They were together in Farr's garden.
Which there tells you that A is Aaron because it's Aaron's garden. It's Aaron Farr. So it's Farr's garden.
Yes, very good. I came back and they're together in his garden. I told them the answer I had got and advised them to take the best measures to make all things right between them. I cannot help thinking that Margaret M. has treated me not only unkindly, but meanly and cruelly, but I forgive her before the Lord. Well, that's big of him, don't you think? But I forgive her before the Lord, for I sympathize with her in her grief, but can't console her, for she will not speak to me. She's not even talking to him anymore. My earnest prayer to God is that all things may soon become right and pleasant, and that the Lord may bless her and save her from sinning against him, God. Oh, I thought Mormonism screwed up my life. And if I have done wrong in asking if the covenant could be revoked and seeking to have it done, O Lord, forgive me, for I desire to do right in all things that I may be saved. And if it's not too much trouble, could you give me that third little sister too? I feel that I have done right in the sight of God, and that he has abundantly blessed me, for which I thank him. And something tells me that the time will come when Margaret will love those whom she ought. God will hear me and answer my prayer. And when she will feel perfectly satisfied with her situation and rejoice that things remain as they are. And now, O God, bless thy servant and handmaid, and stamp thy peace upon us, and fill us with the spirit of truth, for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen.
Now, I'll just note, when we go back over to the original transcript, but nothing's been altered.
Mhm.
This is what it says. It shows there, meaning our union. That's in the original transcript that Jeremy Hoop has in his possession. How is this not a plural marriage? And how is Joseph Smith not involved?
I'm sure that there will be a very, very creative response to that.
Now, I tried to think like a polygamy denier as I was reading these, and I thought, it says PREST, which we know as President Joseph Smith,
Mhm.
but it doesn't say Joseph Smith. Maybe it's not Joseph Smith.
No.
26th of July. But what happens when we get to the 27th of July? AM. I went to see President J. Maybe that's President Jerry or President Jonah. But my guess is it's President Joseph Smith. I went to see President J in our conversation, the conversation President J and I had just yesterday, where he said we can't revoke the covenant. I went to see President J in our conversation about M, Margaret, and A, Aaron. He said if Aaron went to making me any trouble, he would defend me to the uttermost and stand by me through all, for which I feel thankful. At the temple afterwards, in the PM at temple, Jay rode out with Morley and I. It goes on and on, says something else. Then we get to the 30th of July, 1843, 3 days later. Margaret's sick. I was in the room with her all the forenoon and talked a good deal. I think she feels better. O God, the eternal Father, I ask thee, in the name of Jesus Christ, to bless Margaret, comfort her heart, and turn her affections to the right source, that she may have joy and comfort, and be preserved from sinning against her covenant. Even so, amen. In the PM, in consequence of my being with Margaret, in the AM, mother feels bad and threatens to commit suicide. Truly, my heart aches with trouble. Evening, I went to see President. He is sick.
I've just got to look at this and say, how is it that the church can have any issue with the secret lives of Mormon wives when this is their history?
Yeah.
This is insane. This would be must-see TV.
What part of John Turner's narrative are you not able to put together using the William Clayton journals?
Yeah, I figured he did it somehow, probably by reading them.
It's quite obvious that John Turner is making a reasonable interpretation of the William Clayton journal entries.
Well, it's so reasonable that any other interpretation would, I think, be unreasonable.
Yes, absurd.
Yeah, I don't think this is one of those things where there's multiple reasonable interpretations.
No, there's one. John Turner made it. He did a good job of it. We can see it. So I get to this last slide before our next section. And the next section, I think, is just mind-blowing. Why Turner's interpretation is reasonable. The journals show Joseph teaching secret priesthood marriage theology, Joseph deciding who may or may not be sealed, women being approached and persuaded, often with middlemen, family members becoming plural wives, emotional turmoil after the sealings, Joseph exercising authority over the relationships. The journals are silent on explicit sexual details, but they are loud on relationships, authority, and eternal covenants. I think that's a quote from John Turner himself. And the journals, again, they show, I mean, they show this happening. And if Hoop wants to say, okay, they're hanging out together, but there's no sex. Okay. That seems unreasonable with all the anguish going on.
Just imagine being Hoop and getting a hold of this and being all excited, knowing that it's not going to have anything about polygamy in there. And that's going to be your big find and discovery that you can trumpet to the world. And then finding out, oh, shoot, it really does have it. In fact, it has it so much I have to write a whole freaking book to explain why it doesn't have it in there. And I think that's really what the book is, to explain away the presence of polygamy in the William Clayton Journal. Why else do you have to write a book about it? But so that was one point. And there was another point, and I'm not sure I remember it right now, but I do think that this is significant that we have an actual historian, an award-winning historian who understands how to read English.
Yes, and make reasonable, rational interpretations of data. Although really, I think pretty much everyone reading those entries could figure out what the hell's going on.
The only people who don't see polygamy in there are the people who refuse to see polygamy in there. In fact, the thing that would have surprised me the most is if Jeremy Hoop had made his announcement and said, there's actually polygamy in there.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen.
That would never happen.
Nope. Now we get to this. Backroom deals. Now we already saw multiple entries that spoke about middlemen being used as mediators to offer polygamy, to teach it, so that Joseph doesn't have to get his hands dirty and risk being, if somebody decides to go public with what happens, he's not involved, so he gets to distance himself from it. In this next slide, this is William Clayton Journals, but this was a cutout from the Joseph Smith Papers Project. This is one of their historical notes. A month earlier, William Clayton recorded in his journal a conversation he had with Margaret. Sorry. Conversation he had with Joseph Smith regarding Clayton's plural wife, Margaret Moon. Joseph Smith reportedly told him, okay, Clayton is telling the story. So yes, reportedly, but Clayton is one half of the conversation that's happening. Joseph Smith reportedly told him that if anyone were to raise trouble over Clayton's second wife and bring him before Joseph Smith. In other words, Margaret Moon has been threatening to go public. In one of the entries, she says she's about to go public and then she'll eventually take her own life. And Smith says if Margaret Moon were to raise any trouble, if anyone were to raise any trouble over Clayton's second wife, Margaret Moon, and bring him, Clayton, before Joseph Smith, quote, I will give you an awful scourging and probably cut you off from the church. And then I will baptize you and set you ahead as good as ever. In other words, we're going to deceive the public. If someone says you're practicing spiritual wifery, then I have to go, I didn't authorize that. That William Clayton, that dirty scoundrel, let's have a disciplinary court. Let's cast Clayton off the records and out of the church. And then in a few months, when everything settles down, we'll rebaptize you, put you right back at the front of the line, and things will be as good as ever. This is a backroom deal that explains lots of other moments in polygamy history, in Nauvoo, and gives us the example of what's going on in other places. Your thoughts, because this caught my eye when I saw this.
Yeah, this is a smoking gun of sorts, because here we have Clayton saying exactly what Joseph Smith told him. If anybody gives you any trouble about your plural marriage, hey, I will give you an awful scourging, and probably cut you off from the church, and then I will baptize you and set you ahead as good as ever. So this is the big wink, wink. And basically, if you're dumb enough to get yourself caught, okay, and it becomes public, then I'm going to have to make an example of you, but that's okay, because between the two of us, I'm just doing this to protect myself, really is what it is. I'm just doing this to protect myself and this heavenly directed practice, which is not supposed to be known by anybody else yet. So we'll have to pretend like you're doing it on your own. And this explains, or would tend to explain, Joseph Smith's, I think it's more than once, where publicly, when it comes out that someone is practicing plural marriage, then he publicly denounces them and they get excommunicated from the church.
It appears here that the highest priority is to protect the good name of Joseph Smith. And Joseph seems to be deceptive in the same way the church is, as it seeks to have a priority of protecting the good name of the church, which really is at its heart to protect the good name of the 15 leaders of the church.
Yes, and Joseph Smith is stating here that he will publicly lie to condemn William Clayton if it gets around that he has been practicing polygamy, and say that it's wrong to do that and you have to be excommunicated. So when we have this right in William Clayton's journal, that's why it's a smoking gun, like you said, Bill. When we have that William Clayton's journal, what are we supposed to make with all the times when publicly Joseph Smith is acting with horror when people who are very close associates of him, many of them, including Bennett, are caught practicing plural marriage, and he repudiates it and he condemns them and excommunicates them? Is he just doing the same thing that he told William Clayton that he would do if Clayton got caught out for practicing plural marriage?
Just to show folks, again, it's in the original journal entry. Good as ever. I will cut you off from the church, then I will baptize you and set you ahead as good as ever. And the moment you know this deal is being made, you no longer can trust any moment around polygamy where Joseph Smith says, I didn't authorize that. That's spiritual wifery. I have nothing to do with that. Those people are bad. And I immediately think of John C. Bennett and all the other men that were around Bennett who claimed that they had Joseph Smith's authority to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they were cut off from the church. Some of them rejoined, some of them stayed gone forever. But man, how can I trust in what moments this is what's happening or this is not what's happening?
The other thing about this is that for the polygamy deniers like Jeremy Hoop and Michelle Stone, recently returned to the scene apparently, is that they rely so much on Joseph Smith's public denials of polygamy and denouncing people who are caught in polygamy. This completely pulls the rug out from under that position, I think.
It does. It tells you why you see what you see. And maybe you ought to consider the evidence that you dismiss that is so weighty, that has so much weight in this conversation. How can you dismiss Melissa Lott's Bible? How can you dismiss Martha Brotherton or the happiness letter, the circumstances around Fanny Alger? You believe a certain kind of data, and Joseph and Clayton right here are telling you that you shouldn't.
If I can put this as simple as possible, the issue when Joseph Smith is publicly denouncing others caught in polygamy, the question is whether he's telling the truth in his denunciation or is he lying? Is he telling the truth or is he lying? What this says is that he's lying.
Yep. And I want to give you an example of this. On the left is the thing we just read. This was the exact same one. On the right is a document from the Joseph Smith Papers Project. And let me grab my other monitor here so that I'm looking at it. Oops, that's not it. Where are you at? There you are. So this is a document that's in the Joseph Smith Papers Project. It has the document on the left, just like when you go to the site, how it works. And then it has the transcript on the right. Nauvoo City, November 21st, 1843. In fact, I can make it a little bigger, put us down at the bottom because that won't matter, that space. Nauvoo City, November 21st, 1843. Brother William Marks, dear sir, I hereby prefer the following charges against Elder Harrison Sagers, namely, first, for trying to seduce a young girl living at his house by the name of Phoebe Madison. Second, for using my name in a blasphemous manner by saying that I tolerated such things, in which thing her is guilty of lying. This tells you the whole story. She comes forward. She says, this Sagers guy, he's trying to seduce me. And he told me that Joseph Smith told him that it was under his authority, Smith's, that I should be doing this. And Smith says, you ought to take charges against that guy for trying to seduce that girl and for her lying about me. He doesn't say Sagers lied about him being involved. He says she lied about him being involved. Really? Sagers is doing a deceptive thing and the girl is lying? Does that make any rational sense?
No.
Nope.
But it is clear that the critical issue for me is that this had become public. And the fact that it had already become public is evident in what Joseph is writing to the stake president of Nauvoo, who's the guy who's going to prefer charges to have some kind of a court, some kind of a church court, I guess, against this guy.
Isn't Sagers dealing with the exact same situation that Clayton is talking about Joseph making the deal with him in the back room right here?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. If you're Smith and this is a genuine, like you didn't authorize it, you only blame Sagers. You don't blame the girl for lying. He's trying to discredit all other parties.
Good point.
It's not a rational way to handle the situation. It's illogical to handle it that way. The girl's innocent.
The word is getting out. In spite of all the oaths and covenants that you or God want to administer, word is getting out, and he is trying to do everything he can to keep that cat in the bag. And that means anytime it comes out, he has to take whatever steps are necessary in order to deny it and try and convince everybody that there's nothing to these rumors.
Yeah. Again, I want to know, Hoop, how do you jump through these hoops, Jeremy Hoop? So here's the next one. Nope, this is the one we just did. Here's the next one. This is the same document on the left, but now we get a historical note on the right. Did you put this in RFM?
I did, and I did this first one in order to establish what it is that it's talking about. It is that same sort of action memo from Joseph Smith to President William Marks about referring those charges. And down here in this part where it says historical introduction in the Joseph Smith Papers website, down a little bit further, it says, this is the Joseph Smith Papers people, by the way. Okay. It's not us that Jeremy Hoop has to contend with. It's all the historians at the Joseph Smith Papers website and others. Harrison Sagers' actions in 1843 were likely associated with the doctrine of plural marriage. In a later account, church member Nathan Tanner recalled that Joseph Smith taught the doctrine to him and Sagers around this time. Lucinda Sagers and 3 witnesses at a subsequent high council trial stated that Harrison Sagers openly taught the spiritual wife doctrine. See, that's what it was called back then, spiritual wifery. In fall of 1843, Lucinda Sagers and 2 of the witnesses also stated or implied that Harrison Sagers practiced plural marriage. So this is their conclusion at the Joseph Smith Papers Project. It is unclear whether Joseph Smith authorized Sagers to practice plural marriage. If he did, the charges might have served to curb negative publicity. Okay, what they're saying is, if Joseph Smith had authorized Sagers to practice plural marriage, Joseph Smith may have preferred the charges against him falsely in order to get the heat off of him, in order to curb negative publicity, or to discipline Sagers for pursuing Madison inappropriately, like maybe John Bennett did, speaking about the confidential doctrine too openly, or bringing unwelcome attention to the situation. Well, it's actually 3 out of those 5. It's those last 2, plus trying to curb negative publicity. So the historians at the Joseph Smith Papers Project understand that this is a very, very plausible scenario, that Joseph Smith did tell Harrison Sagers to practice plural marriage. It came to light, people found out, and so he had to deny it, and that denial included taking the action of preferring charges against him to the stake high council.
You know, in the Joseph Smith Papers writers here, they still want to parse this out and say there's John C. Bennett and there's spiritual wifery, and then there's legitimate plural marriage being done by Joseph Smith. And we can't tell which one it is in this situation, but if Joseph Smith, at the very last sentence past where you highlighted, if Joseph Smith did not authorize Sagers to practice plural marriage, the charges could have been an attempt to prevent unauthorized marriages or other inappropriate sexual behavior. How can we now know the difference? We can't. You can no longer know because they both look exactly the same. And at this point, it becomes way more rational to look back at any of those other moments and see them as similar to the Clayton backroom deal, where something became public that Joseph Smith didn't want. Because where else in the world are good Mormons in the same neighborhood as Joseph Smith going to position themselves as trying to create adulterous relationships and blaming the prophet Joseph Smith as having authorized it? RFM, if you and I are Mormons in Nauvoo and we want to do something scandalous, there's a huge risk in approaching women and telling them that Joseph Smith commanded you and gave you authority, authorized you doing that.
Because he lives down the street.
Yeah, that's going to bite you in the ass. What seems so much more likely now is that we're dealing with that. These men were authorized by Joseph Smith, but anytime it became public, anything that became public, Joseph Smith didn't authorize that. Anything that stayed in secret, we all go in church history, that was an authorized plural marriage. That's how we tell the difference.
And if the history and the historians are correct that Joseph Smith is practicing plural marriage in this manner, that is exactly what we would expect to have happen when something went public. Of course he's going to deny it. Of course he's going to have to come down heavy on the guy who got exposed.
If the way we discern which ones are legit and which ones aren't, all the plural marriages that the woman spoke out, somebody came forward, the neighborhood heard the rumors. If those marriages are unauthorized and all the ones that stayed secret, nobody talked, they just did what they were told, those are the legitimate marriages. Then you're drawing an arbitrary line that actually doesn't make any rational sense. That line is at best blurred, and more likely they are all legitimate marriages because Joseph Smith is doing all of this in the shadows.
After looking at this aspect of these William Clayton journals, I am convinced that more likely than not, Joseph Smith was absolutely involved in John C. Bennett's spiritual wifery and authorizing it, just like John C. Bennett said, and like Joseph Smith publicly denied.
Of course he was. Of course he was. So when men get in trouble, can we trust the outcome? The backroom deal with Clayton shows why we should be skeptical. Joseph's pattern with Clayton: make secret covenants, promise protection, even deception, promise that, hey, I'm going to punish you, but only for a season. Then I'll get you back in the church. And he keeps the agreement as long as Clayton stays loyal and silent. How could you ever know? I will give you an awful scourging and probably cut you off from the church. And then I will baptize you and set you ahead as good as ever. As long as your church broke, as long as you're loyal, as long as you protect me, I'll protect you. Joseph's willing to make secret pacts behind closed doors. He's willing to make a public appearance of his righteousness in disciplining the transgressor. And everyone gets protection, including Joseph, if they stay loyal.
Yeah, William Clayton has already lost his way. I think that he sees himself as a person who really wants to do what is right before God, but he has lost his way. And he knows, part of him knows it, especially when he goes after the third. I mean, my goodness, come on. At some point, you've got to realize that this has nothing to do with God and everything to do with what it is that you want to do with as many women as you can.
Yeah, somebody said here, it's the good old boys club. And it is, with their own secret rules, so that all of us in the public watching, if we're in Nauvoo and we're watching this happen, we don't know the backroom deal. All we see is this outward appearance of someone having falsely attributed Joseph as authorizing their approach to a young woman, and that young man being dragged into a disciplinary court and him being church disciplined. And that man, how dare he put the prophet's name in his mouth and act like Joseph authorized these relationships. And then after a season of being out, then they repented and they've come back in. How do we know that something like this doesn't work today? How do you know?
You know what I would have asked Joseph Smith if I had been William Clayton? I would have said, well, if you do excommunicate me so that I have to be rebaptized, if you do excommunicate me, right, would that like annul my marriage to Margaret?
Yeah, I don't know if he had that theology worked out yet.
Because if the answer is yes, just excommunicate me. It'll take care of the marriage. You can go with Aaron Farr, and then you can rebaptize me, and the problem is solved. I feel like MacGyver at this point.
The covenant that couldn't be revoked could be revoked.
Yes, absolutely. Because that's what happens when you get excommunicated. You lose all those covenants, right?
It ends all promises, obligations, all the words we use in the scriptures for that.
Yes.
Okay. How Emma experienced plural marriage. There are this entry here. This is William Clayton Journals. This is again Joseph Smith Papers Project. They're just noting July 12th, 1843. Again, we've gone over this. According to Clayton's later affidavit, Hiram alone went to Emma, while Joseph remained with me in the office until Hiram returned. Joseph even uses the middleman when it's his own brother and wife.
Well, I can understand him staying in the office on that one.
Yeah.
But he is a bit of a chicken shit at times, isn't he?
Yeah. Keep some distance. Always keeping distance. Clayton, 12 July 1843. This is their note about it. According to William Law, Emma Smith at an unknown time complained to him about the revelation. She said once, the revelation says I must submit or be destroyed. Well, I guess I have to submit. And that's in that Dr. Weil, that book that we did some while ago, no pun intended. And Dr. William Law was one of the folks who shared his testimony in that.
You know, imagine that you've got this revelation from God that says that your wife is going to be destroyed unless she is okay with you shagging as many women as you can, okay? And you're going to give that to Hiram to go give to her. You're not going to do that yourself. You're going to give it to him. I think that tells us something about Joseph Smith too.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy.
Either he was chicken, or maybe he thought, I've tried and tried, and maybe Hiram can convince her. Hiram is the great convincer. She won't believe me.
Yeah, well, multiple reasons. One, again, Joseph seems to often use a middleman so that he can keep himself out of the direct interaction, so that if anything goes wrong, he at least has other angles he can play. In this situation, it allows him not to have to deal with whatever anger comes forward from Emma, rightfully so.
Lamps being thrown. There's a lamp right there on the table, I see.
Yeah. We already talked about the Hiram went alone. Hiram delivers. Joseph stays behind. Emma complains to William Law. That's just a slide that took all of that data and put it into an image. So then we get the pattern of behavior. Oh, that one did a little up in the corner. I'll just note here. 1, Margaret Moon enters Clayton's household orbit. 2, Joseph teaches Clayton the theological framework. 3, Joseph acts as a gatekeeper of sealing relationships. Remember, he doesn't let nobles get sealed to anybody It's just not the right time, Brother Nobles. I'm so sorry. And but in Clayton's instance, he gets some favors and his adulterous thoughts resolved quickly by getting a second wife. Number 4, Margaret is pressured away from Aaron Farr. Number 5, Ruth and Margaret appear together in Clayton's life. There's that. I just want to note, by the way, thank you very much, J.D. Dutra.
Holy
$100.
Toledo.
Yeah, an angel with a flaming sword just appeared to me and forced me to donate some beer money to you guys. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, JD.
Yeah, thank you. So who says that angels with flaming swords are all bad?
Yeah. He's a dirty dog. This actually should be 6 through 10 or 6 through 11. This is Joseph gives public/private doctrine boundary. Margaret's covenant creates severe distress. Joseph refuses to revoke the covenant. I don't know about this one, but Jane Hardman is sealed to Clayton. So that's another sealing. But I know he had multiple wives. I don't know anything about Jane Hardman, though. Lydia Hardman refused Joseph, but agreed to Clayton.
Is it Hardman or Hardiman? I thought there was an I in there.
Might be. And then Lydia, she agrees to Clayton, but then she backs out. And then she ends up marrying one of the Clayton brothers, and another sister marries another Clayton brother. We read that earlier. Ruth, Margaret, and Diantha are sealed with Clayton. So again, he has lots of plural wives. All right. So conclusion here. Yes, the language isn't bluntly sexual. But man, I don't know how else you would interpret this stuff. The journals strongly support a pattern of plural marriage negotiation, emotional pressure, household integration, and priesthood authority control. It keeps mentioning a Lydia entry. I'm not sure what they're picking from there for that, but I'll just say we're at the end of that part. But I know we've got some of sort of the William Clayton. I'll call it the William Clayton affair. I don't mean it as in like a sexual affair, just the whole episode.
Why not?
Well, you can certainly call it that. But there are other interesting things that happen in these Clayton journals, and we wanted to go into a few of these with a little bit of time that we want to spend here. I'll just note in this first one, 18 May 1843, we left Macedonia about 8:30. Not sure what he means by that, but that's what it actually says.
8:30.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes, but I didn't know if it was AM or PM. 8:30 and arrived at Carthage at 10. I asked President whether children who die in infancy will grow. He answered, no, we shall receive them precisely in the same state as they died, i.e., no larger. They will have as much intelligence as we shall, but shall always remain separate and single. They will have no increase. Children who are born dead will have full-grown bodies being made up by the resurrection.
This causes so many theological problems.
Yeah,
because mainly if you die before you're 8, you go directly to the celestial kingdom. But that's where the people who are sealed, married forever go. And yet this also says not only did they stay little kids forever, like he does again a year later in the King Follett discourse. But not only do they stay single forever, but little forever, they're also separate and single. They will have no increase. So they're not having any increase. So how can they be saved in the celestial kingdom? But they have to be saved in the celestial kingdom because they died before they reached the age of accountability. This does not compute, and the computer explodes.
Infants on thrones.
Right.
This is one that you put in.
Yes, there's just a few things here that I threw in here, all right? Not necessarily related to polygamy. So this is January 30th, 1844. Of course, he does journals that go after Joseph Smith's death for quite a while. And, typically we're more interested in what he's doing with Joseph Smith, since Joseph Smith is the founder of Mormonism. But I'm sure there are many interesting things he did after Joseph Smith died as well. But this has to do with the 30th of January, 1844. In the morning at President Joseph's, he was conversing with a gentleman from Quincy who tantalized him some about his religion. Finally, Joseph told him that many years, then it says OM question mark, because I don't know what that means, that many years should not pass away before the devil would have him. And he prophesied it in the name of the Lord, so you know it's going to happen. If amen, amen, and amen doesn't work, prophesying something in the name of the Lord will definitely do it. Also, that he should not live out half his days. Whatever it was you're going to live, nope, not even half of that. That's the curse I'm giving you, pal, because you said bad things about my religion, which made me think of how this line of thought, belief, this idea of cursing people in the name of the Lord, I don't know that it's that prevalent in other Christian churches. I could be mistaken, but this continues even today. And a modern Joseph Smith type crackpot, Shane Baldwin, the fourth Baldwin brother, went ahead and did the same thing to John DeLynn, because John DeLynn thought that he was a fraud. I mean, it's not like he went to prison for 5 years for being convicted of fraud or anything. Oh, wait, yes, he has. Here he is. This is Shane Baldwin. And over here is his archetype. That's Brian Blessed. So as soon as I saw this cat, Shane Baldwin, I thought, is that Brian Blessed's son? No, thank goodness, because I like Brian Blessed. But here's the next clip on this next slide. This is like a minute or so where he's just going on and on about, you know, what he's going to do to Joseph Smith. Not Joseph Smith, but John DeLynn. What he's going to do, what Shane's going to do to John DeLynn, but John DeLynn has to let him come on John DeLynn's show first, see. This is the way he asks for a date. I'm not sure it's going to work.
A comment here. Don't know what's going on. How self-righteous, he will be humbled. Yes. And here's my invitation. And maybe this is a good time to make the invitation to John DeLynn. We're an hour in on me responding. John, I'd love to have an Alma to Korihor conversation with you. Now, what happened to Korihor is he didn't believe anything Alma was saying, and he was given a gift from God, which was meant he was struck dumb. Now, I'm here to tell you, John, you won't be struck dumb. That's not what I'm here to do or to say that you're going to be struck dumb. There's something more. John, you're a cancer. You're a cancer to this earth. And so I would love the opportunity to come on. And if we don't see eye to eye, like Alma and Korihor didn't see eye to eye, I have a gift from God that I would like to give you. And here's the great thing. Either I'm full of crap and the priesthood doesn't work, and so you should easily accept this offer. You should easily accept me sitting down with you. And or you can do this. You can just say, hey, Shane, I saw you say this. Go ahead and offer this, whatever you want to call it, a prayer, a dusting off of the feet. They call it many things. And I would say, if you accept that you will allow me to exercise priesthood, just like Alma exercised priesthood on Korihor, I have something that I know that the Lord would like to give to you to show your 310,000 followers the fraud that you are. So if you accept that, I am happy to. And here's the thing. If nothing happens to you that I say will happen to you, then you can say, yep, I told you, see, he's a fraud. But if something does happen to you that I say is going to happen to you, then we all know that you're a fraud. So if you accept, because I have to allow agency here, if you accept this exchange to take place, I am happy to actually go through, it's an ordinance. Again, some people call it dusting off the feet. I don't like going there. There's a different name for this ordinance. There are blessings and there are cursings. And I would love to be able to give you that priesthood ordinance, because I think you're due. But I have to honor your agency. So if you can go on and say, hey, Shane Baldwin, go ahead and dust off your feet, and you give me permission to go ahead and do that, I'll let everybody know, not that I've just dusted off my feet, but what will befall you. Just like Korihor, who went dumb. That's what befell him. I'll go ahead and announce what will befall you. And then We'll see if that comes to pass, and then we'll know who is a fraud after that. Okay.
I think Shane Baldwin went dumb a long time ago. What do you think, Bill?
What's he going to do? Is he going to make like a guess about, I predict that John Dehlin will lose his lawsuit?
Oh my gosh, God only knows. But yeah, nobody should be anywhere near this guy, I think. Anyway, what was I going to say? I was saying, so the John Dehlin part and losing the lawsuit. Yeah. He seems to really, really want to go on John's show, and he wants to give John something. And apparently he's modeling it after Alma and Corey Hoare. Now, exactly where in Alma chapter 30, Shane, does Alma give Corey Hoare the ability to choose whether he's going to strike him down? Even your own story in your own book refutes your whole idea. Are we to think that God can't curse anybody unless they say, okay? No, God's that powerless. The God of Shane Baldwin cannot curse anybody unless the person says, okay, come on, curse me.
Yeah. And why can't you make him dumb? If you have the real magic priesthood and you can dust your feet off and make someone a mute or make someone dumb, make them blind. It's happened. Do it. Like, have the balls to curse somebody who's well known and say what's going to happen to them, and let's see if it really does. Do me. I don't care, because whatever you say, unless you take the action or hire someone to do it, it's not going to happen. You're going to die someday. Well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Shit happens. But your God magic doesn't work, my friend. I like your barber. He does a hell of a good job, but your God magic doesn't.
That's quite a head of cabbage on that guy, isn't it?
It is.
You know, I think that what he's after is not really so much the miracle. I think he's after the clout. That's what he wants. He wants to go on John's show.
One clout.
My mama told me when I was a kid that I shouldn't invite myself over to other people's houses. I guess your mom didn't tell you that, Shane. Shane didn't even need yes, he did not. Shane did not even need a priesthood ordinance to be struck dumb. There's a curse in your family and it fell on you. Oh, this is another thing from the Journal of William Clayton, April 11th, 1844. By the way, the whole point of playing that was, number one, because I knew you would love it, and also number two, to show that this has a long pedigree in the LDS Church, this whole thing about cursing people. April 11th, 1844. At the president's in the morning afterwards in the council. What council? We had a glorious interview. President Joseph was voted our PP and K with loud hosannas. Our PP and K. Do you guys know what this is? What is it, Bill?
Prophets, priests, and kings.
Yep. President Joseph was voted our prophet, priest, and king. This is the Council of 50. This is the council that they are creating in order to take over the government once Jesus comes, right? So we need to have a government that's a shadow government at this point, ready to take over I guess it would be the United States government when Jesus comes and throws everything into confusion. So Joseph Smith is the prophet, priest, and king. April 11th, 1844. A week later, on April 18th, the morning was at President Joseph's recording deeds. He did a lot of those deeds. At 9, met in council. This day, President Joseph introduced a guy named Coolidge and Hollister and added, I think it's Lyman White's name, and then declared the council full. We've got our 50. We might have had 52. The names as they now stand of those who have been called upon to form the grand K of G by revelation are as follows. What's the grand K of G that they have just... Go ahead.
Kingdom of God.
The grand kingdom of God. That's what this Council of 50 is. What's a kingdom without a king? Well, Joseph Smith, 7 days before, was voted to be the king, which is an interesting idea, voting a king in, but what the heck? So anyway, and you wanted to, this is from June 22nd. This is all happening with this Council of 50 stuff. Now Joseph Smith has burned down the Nauvoo Expositor Press. It hasn't been burned down. It was destroyed and the type thrown out in the street, okay? The press was destroyed is the point. And now he's got the government of Illinois breathing down his neck. And they're sending out people from the government to come in and see what the heck's going on. The problem for Joseph Smith is that what they know about is about the Nauvoo expositor and how Joseph Smith as mayor and the city council gave an order to abate a nuisance, in other words, destroy a public press for printing a newspaper, which is generally considered to be protected by the First Amendment. And so I only stopped there because I'm thinking about the First Amendment and whether it was applicable to the states at the time, because the Civil War amendments had not been passed yet, which includes the 14th Amendment, which makes everything else applicable to the states. Regardless, I'm sure that was part of what was going on.
By
All
the
I'm
way,
saying, yes, go ahead.
Before you read more of this, I
Yeah.
just want to note, isn't this 5 days before Joseph Smith is martyred at Carthage jail?
Yes.
I think that is really important as you get into what this says.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
So, in other words, the government's coming down to investigate a violation of freedom of the press. And what they don't know is that Joseph Smith and all these people, and they wrote down all 52 of their names in this document. I mean, what are they thinking? They wrote them all down. The reason why I say that is because now they're committing treason, which I think is a charitable way of looking at it. They're setting up a government to take the place of the United States government. And I'm sure their argument would be, well, we're not going to do it until Jesus comes. But here you got a king on American soil, and it's Joseph Smith, and you voted him in as king, and you got the names of everybody. So Joseph Smith is losing it on a number of fronts. Go ahead, Bill.
And he's running for president.
Mm.
Would you, if we found out that someone running for president had created a secret group and that group had elected that person to be the king, that wouldn't fly over very well.
You wouldn't think so. The governor, I'm just reading at the bottom of this, the governor has sent 30 men to take them to Carthage. This is Joseph Smith talking to William Clayton. And if they offer any resistance, he intends to call out the militia of the state and take them by force of arms. Joseph whispered and told me either to put the R of K into the hands of some faithful man and send them away, or burn them or bury them. I concluded to bury them, which I did immediately on my return home. The R of K. What is it that Joseph is whispering to William Clayton that he needs to get the R of K and make him vanish? What is that, Bill?
The records of the kingdom. This is the records of the Council of 50. There's going to be so much in these. Again, this council was set up to create secrecy around polygamy, to allow there to be an insiders group where they could do things in the shadows. It's super top secret. And he is in the middle of being in trouble for the expositor, about to go to Carthage, about to be martyred. And the last thing he wants is whatever is in that book to be publicly available for people to read.
I think you've done a good job underlining how important it was to Joseph Smith that the government not find out about the contents of this book. With everything else that was going on, which normally would distract a person, he still thought of this, and it has to be gotten rid of. So that was on June 22nd. Okay. On July 3rd, now Joseph Smith is martyred. It's a week later. Emma has counseled Esquire Wood on the subject in the evening at the temple office, and after the evening at the temple office, went to dig up the records. Water had got into the place where they were, and they were damaged. So there's a reference to those records that he buried and then dug up. So he buried him about a week before Joseph Smith was killed and dug him up about a week after, because all the soldiers and the militia were gone from the government. 12th April, 1844. This is going back a bit in time. Let's go April 13th, 1844. The morning I spent at President Joseph's recording deeds. President Joseph Smith, he prophesied the entire overthrow of this nation in a few years. Period. There's no period there, but that's the end of the entry. Then it says evening at the temple office and the lodge. But so what happened with that? I mean, you got this guy over at Rise Zion who's sitting there looking at every, strange look of a general authority or even a stake authority as some kind of sign that Jesus is coming back and that this whole nation's going to get overthrown when he comes back. Well, it seems like we've been saying that for a long time, and Joseph Smith was saying it back in 1844 and saying that would happen in a few years. I know few is not an exact number, but I don't think that it covers 180. I think that's more than a few years. And it's been 180 years since he said this.
False prophecy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's another thing I see in the journal. Now, here's something else. Okay, this is when he was martyred. The reason I put this in here is because remember the discussion we had about who killed Joseph Smith? And the bullet, what?
Which is connected to the polygamy deniers, which Jeremy Hoop, if questioned, almost certainly believes that John Taylor and Brigham Young and company killed Joseph Smith.
Right. And very good. And do you remember there was that strange ball? And by that I mean a bullet, a ball that was fired from a gun that killed Hiram. And it went up into his chin like this and out his nose or something like that. And the question is, well, did it go down this way? Remember, I had suggested he was leaning up against the door and it might have shot down this way. Other people are saying, no, it went up this way and out through the nose. And how could that have happened unless, John Taylor was holding the pistol up under him? It couldn't have come from the door or the window because the angle is so impossible. That's how I recall the argument. The answer to this is actually given in the William Clayton journal. And what he's doing is he's recording the substance of a letter that he received from Willard Richards. Remember, Joseph and Hiram were killed. John Taylor severely wounded. Willard Richards escapes without a wound. Willard Richards writes down what it is that happened. He's an eyewitness. He's in the cell, in the room when the bullets are flying and the people are dying. And this is what he says. This is the earliest eyewitness account. The mob then rushed up. I'm in the middle. The mob then rushed upstairs and began to try to break open the door. Hiram and Dr. Richards held it. Soon a ball came through the door and struck Hiram on the left side of the nose below the eye. He fell over. And while falling, another ball struck on his breast and entered his head under the chin. So even as that expert that had been hired, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the Who Killed Joseph Smith film producer, Justin Griffin, I think it is, his expert talked about, he didn't agree with the idea it was an inside job. He thought it was an outside job like everybody else thinks. And like we've all thought that it was a mob who did it from the outside, not that it was John Taylor shooting him from the inside in the middle of a hailstorm of bullets being fired by the mob from outside. It's a dynamic situation. People are not holding still to take balls or bullets in their body. They're moving around, they're running. In this case, Hiram takes one in the face, and according to this witness, is falling backward when he takes one in the chin. In other words, his falling backwards accounts for how that bullet could have come through the door or the window in a rather straight kind of horizontal angle and not have to be going straight up into his chin.
There are lots of men on the other side of that door who are firing guns. To make an argument where like there's only one bullet and there's these two wounds, and how do we explain that? Again, this seems so reasonable and explains essentially all data points.
Yeah. And then it concludes, he said, Hiram said, I am a dead man, and instantly expired. So one ball through the door, Hiram on the left side of his nose below the eye. He falls over, and while falling, another ball strikes on his breast and enters his head under the chin. That's what Willard Richards said happened anyway. And I think it accounts for the evidence. Oh, thank you, Suze. Says, wonderful show tonight. Thank you on that super chat. Thank you very much. This was the last comment that I had about some miscellaneous things that jumped out to me when I was reviewing these journals. And I think that's it. Is there more after this? Oh, yeah, that's right. Once again, Jeremy Hoop not seeing anything about plural marriage in the William Clayton journal. And yet, this is from the William Clayton journal. It happened on May 23rd, 1844, when he writes, about 3 p.m., Lathrop came in from Carthage and brought news that the grand jury had found a bill against President Joseph for adultery. What do you think that's about, Jeremy? What do you think that is? That he got charged with adultery, that a grand jury found probable cause to charge Joseph Smith with adultery. Well, what it is, of course, and I looked at a BYU Studies article about it, it's about Maria Lawrence, that Joseph Smith had married as a wife, a plural wife, about a year before. And so the laws knew about this, and they knew that part of that marriage was the sexual act. And so therefore, they got charges filed against Joseph Smith for adultery, because he's having sex with a woman, even though he's already lawfully married to Emma. This indictment ends up never being resolved, in the sense that it was continued over to October for a trial, and Joseph Smith obviously was not present because he died, and so it was dismissed at that point.
Maria Lawrence was 19 years old at the time of her marriage. Her sister Sarah was 17 years old. The Lawrence sisters, again, there's some debate about this, but I can't remember if her parents died. I think that's what happened. Joseph takes these two girls into his home, and like every other girl he takes into his home, ends up being an intimate relationship. And there's some debate about whether Joseph stole their inheritance by working himself into the legal wording of that and sort of adopting them and being able to take the things that their parents had left them.
Wow. Yep. So that's it for me. And I think we're left with, I think the ball is in Jeremy's court to explain exactly how it is that he sees no plural marriage in the William Clayton journals.
I'd say it's sufficient. For me, it's case closed. Unless you're going to make the argument that Clayton and Young and others altered or created a William Clayton journals when they actually aren't contemporary to Smith. But man, I think that's a dangerous proposition you'd like to step into. I just don't. I think that's so irrational that you're basically saying I need my conclusion so bad that I will just be crazy about it.
Yes, which I think what you're saying is that every time that the journals mention plural marriage is where they were changed. Stargirl says in a super chat, as a descendant of Margaret Moon, really? I always appreciate her story being told. That was the second sister. She was so heartbroken for Austin Farr. The Nauvoo endowment, she writes, is integral to the coercion as well.
I like this one. Kolob Choir Queen, Bill and RFM. This is a masterclass in podcasting. Yeah, I say it. I don't think anybody does a historical podcast on Mormonism better than RFM and I. So I hope that folks enjoyed tonight's episode. I hope that you get to see that Hoop is making an irrational argument. Jeremy, I think there's lots of questions about the provenance of how you still got these, how you and was it McKay? Got the journals, transcripts, what really was going on in terms of what James B. Allen said when those were given to McKay, and why you waited so long after the death of James B. Allen to release them. And can you give me a reason without blaming the church? Because the church still hasn't released the journals, and yet you have. So it can't be because the church hasn't released them. That doesn't make any sense. So I'd love to make better sense of the whole story. And the things that we pointed out tonight that deeply point to polygamy, we can't wait till you help us understand how we're misunderstanding and misreading the documents, and they don't say what everyone thinks they say. It's going to be a lot of fun. RFM, it's been a great night. Folks, please do like and subscribe. And please, if you love the work that we do, we need your donations. We're a nonprofit. RFM and I have the ability to do this work. It is enjoyable for us to bring history to you. But we do need your support. So will you go to mormonismlive.org, click the donate button. $5 or $10 a month. It's such a small amount, but when all of you do it together, it allows us to keep doing what we do, which is to spend day in and day out researching Mormonism, paying attention to current events, and helping you make sense of all the things that weren't told to you on the front end of your time in this religion. And we all know that faith crises are difficult, and making sense of history is difficult. But hopefully this podcast is a help to all of you. For those of you who do support the show, thank you so much. You really are sort of the backbone of what makes this allowable and helps us to be able to have done this for years and years at this point. So thank you to all of you who support the show. Please do hit like and subscribe. If you want to message us, you can email us at Mormon Discussions with an S on the end, podcast with an S on the end @gmail.com. And Mr. Radio Free Mormon, thank you so much for being a part of tonight's episode as well. And we'll just see everybody next Wednesday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, for the next episode of Mormonism Live. In the meantime, do check out Radio Free Mormon, Mormonism After Dark on Friday night, and his brand show Radio Free Mormon on Saturdays, and keep an eye on what he's putting out this week too. And then we'll see you back for the newscast on Monday. Everybody have a great night, and see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Good night.